so we'll go ahead and call to order the Lander County Commission meeting, Town Board of Battle Mountain and Austin Board of County Highway Commission. All right, so we will, Brian, you want to lead us in the
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to have a moment of silence. All right. So, Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. Any agenda items may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. All right, so commission reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars. Patsy?
Thank you. I did have an airport advisory board meeting in Austin on the 13th. We're working on our budget things and some things that we need to ask for, of course. One of the things that we were looking at for some activities was an EMS rodeo that Kim Schott had mentioned that might be kind of fun. So we're kind of looking at that one a little bit. And then there's a few things that still need to be repaired that we're working with Road and Bridge. Yesterday I did have an NNRDA meeting, the Nevada Development, and actually there's a couple things on that. Our chair was Rebecca Darling. For those of you that might know her, she's been very active in the mines, very community minded, just a fabulous lady, and she has been nixed with the merger. So she's not going to be with us anymore. So she stepped down as our chair. Unfortunately, we're losing her out of the community too. I'm sure she said her professional history will probably be taking her somewhere else. A lot of things that are going on that we'll be working on through LEDA. But one of the strange things that kind of came up we hadn't thought about before is the way that our membership actually pays to NNRDA. It's through population. And it was brought up that part of the population is always recorded with all the different counties is their certified population of Nevada cities and towns includes those folks that are incarcerated. And we hadn't thought about that before because it's based on that. So we've got almost every county that has somebody. We aren't counting county jails. County jails is a lot of transient people too, so that wouldn't be quite right. But the people that actually are housed in these facilities, and we've got Lovelock and Humboldt, Pershing, Ely, even Wells. I mean, there's quite a few. So whether they're going to consider that as part of their population, it will make a difference to some. Some populations are up there, so it could range anywhere from making a difference of $100 a year up to $1,500 a year. So that's something that they're going to be looking at if any of you have any input, whether you think that should be included in part of their population. Of course, they have a big economic value there too, and employ a lot of people and brings a lot into the economy. So that was just kind of an interesting point that we deferred it. We talked a lot, but we're going to be working on that to see whether that's going to be considered or not.
Thanks. Art?
No, I didn't go anywhere.
No, and I haven't attended any last meeting.
Nothing.
Judy?
So on January 10th, I did attend the Humboldt River Basin Water Authority meeting, and pretty much standard meeting, nothing too exciting, except for there was an interesting presentation on, well, it's just calling it unmanned aircraft systems or drones. And the gentleman that presented it does a lot of monitoring for stream beds, banks, rivers, etc. And there's just unknown, application of what you can use these drones for. And actually, the ones he uses are relatively inexpensive. It was really interesting. I kind of got a little education on drones because the ones he's using, basically you program them and you can give them coordinates of where you want them to fly and how high, and you just kind of hit the go button, and you can pre-program that, and every year they can go and do the exact same route. And it's not like you're with a game control or something. I mean, these are actually all on their own. And it was really interesting, and I think for a river basin application, because there's so much controversy and issues going on with the Humboldt, it would be interesting to incorporate that for their monitoring. So, like I said, that was a pretty standard meeting, nothing else really exciting, but definitely interesting. So then on the 21st, I had a LEPSI meeting. We had a presentation by Mr. Bob Riesacker with the American Legion regarding emergency measures for Lander County. And it's something that the American Legion and the VFW is really concerned with and working on. So he presented us with a report for electromagnetic pulse attacks, or EMPs. And we all think that nothing's going to happen, but you can still be prepared. And that was this report was written in 2004. There's another one, I guess, another volume written in 2014 that he didn't have. But it's just a preparedness. And I know he's talked to Bert about our water and sewer system and protecting that and ulterior, what's the word I'm looking for? If something did happen, we have the backup. So I have this report if anybody would like to look at it. So it's kind of interesting. So then the other thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, I know it doesn't sound really exciting, but PERCIRC, which is basically who oversees the LEPSI, and we have to follow certain guidelines and whatnot. We have to have tabletop exercises, and we're going to also have a field exercise. And this will be on, an emergency situation. More than likely it's going to be a hazmat situation, but not necessarily. So in April, it will be, the tabletop exercise will be following our standard meeting in April, which is the second Tuesdays of the month, 5:30 in the community room. But we're going to have a field exercise on May 2nd. And actually, the more participation we can get to get the community aware of potential problems and how to deal with them, react, and what procedures you need to follow. It's always great to have more participation. So I just want to let everybody know that will be on May 2nd. We haven't figured out yet where we're going to have it or what we're going to have. But I can bring some updates on that. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. So staff reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended.
Okay, the first thing is I want to let the commission know to keep in the back of their minds, the budget workshop is tentatively or scheduled for March 16th and 17th this year, Monday and Tuesday. We did have a meeting earlier this week regarding the industrial park and some of the direction that the commission gave, and we came up with some ideas, and that should be presented probably in the next meeting or two for the commission to look at and give feedback on a direction to go from there. I met with Senator Rosen's office yesterday, office staff, to discuss the lands bill. We went into great detail on a lot of the lands bill and why we want these parcels of excess land and what they're going to be used for, and so on and so forth. Then Kyla took them out for a tour of the northern lands that are in the lands bill, and next week they're returning, and we're going to do some more tours of the lands in the southern part of the county. I've also been in contact with
Martin Paris out of Congressman Amday's office to discuss the Amtrak, the proposed or the requested stops by Amtrak in both the east and westbound tracks. And hopefully we'll get a little more information and get moving on that, on what we need to do in order to put that forth. One of the projects that I put forth last year in the budget workshop was a sports complex. Aaron Martinez of AM Engineering will be here next week. I met with him last week to go over his drawings and his ideas and what we would like to see to present to the commission to see if the commission wants to move forward this year. Probably 2 or 3 phase project, depending on what the board wants to do. There's a lot of good information about our airports, but our airport engineers are here today to pass that information on to you as far as the future of the airports in the county. And that's all I have.
All right. Moving on, so public comment for non-agendized items only. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and or attend and make comments on any non-agendized items at the board meeting, if any, and the discussion of those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again, at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions can be placed on the public comment based on time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. All right. Consent items. All matters listed in consent items are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda. Discussion acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent items, materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. So number 1, approval of January 23rd, 2020 agenda notice. Number 2, approval of July 25th, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 3, approval of October 10th, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 4, approval of October 24th, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 5, approval of November 7th, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 6, approval of November 25th, 2019 special meeting minutes. Number 7, approval of December 5th, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 8, approval December 19th, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 9, approval January 9th, 2020 meeting minutes. Number 10, approval of payment of bills. So, we do not have any of the meeting minutes, correct? So we'll be pulling.
No.
I'm sorry?
July 25th.
We have July
We have
25th.
July 25th. Okay. Oh, right there. All right. So, we have so to pull out number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
I'll make a motion that we approve the January 23rd agenda notice and the July 25th meeting minutes. That's number 1 and number 2.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. On the approval of the payment of bills, we're going to be pulling out check number 206311, 206399
Those
for
are
Ryan.
checks that were made to my employer.
So all in favor of excluding those two? Oh, I'm sorry. Go for the motion.
I'll make a
I'm
motion.
sorry. Got
I'll make
ahead
a
of myself.
motion, we approve all the bills minus those 2 checks.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, a motion to approve those 2 checks. The 206311, 206399.
I'll go ahead and make a motion, we approve those 2 checks.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
And I abstain for
Okay.
reasons that they're made to my employer.
All right.
Aye.
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 All right. So, for the county manager, For possible action to consider and then to approve, disapprove, 2 proposals from Stanley Security and install a new camera system at a total cost of $143,083.79, or a monthly fee of $1,473.28, and a new security system at a total cost of $195,098.28, or a monthly fee of $1,998.61. In the Lander County Courthouse Administrative Building. These proposals will be presented for consideration by a representative by Stanley Security and the building official, Anna Panola.
Good morning, Anna Panola. And
Good morning, Don Tennyson with Stanley Security.
Good morning.
we're bringing this proposal to you because our camera system and our security system, the security system for the key cards is toast. It's been almost a year since we've been able to print new cards or anything. The camera system is not completely functioning, and we have to add some cameras. We need some help, so we're bringing this proposal from Stanley. And Don will explain the proposal.
Sure. There's actually 2 proposals. One of them is again for the access control, which is the card key system and that, which is, you haven't been able to enroll cards or have doors functioning properly. We did a walkthrough and did a detailed inspection of each door as we went through and determined what was what with each of the doors. There are doors that don't have locks on them anymore, things like that will be brought back up to a safe standard for you. And at the same time, the issue has been that not being able to enroll cards. So when you have new employees or somebody new comes in, trying to give them a card or access to areas basically goes away. So with the new system, you'll have the ability and the flexibility to add and new employees or give people access to certain areas, and based on their priorities or what your priorities are for them. Same thing holds true in the video system. The video system, and mind you, these are computer systems, and we all know what happens with computer systems after a time. They start running slower. Bugs that just happen. And the same thing happens holds true with the video system. If I remember correctly, you're running a Hike Vision video system. Hike is a company that I won't go there. Never mind. Sorry. Let's put it this way: the federal government does not allow Hike Vision systems into their facilities. Okay. So with that being said, the other part of it is these are IP cameras. There are also computer systems for the recording, management, and those kinds of things. And when you have cameras fall out or computer issues or networking issues, you're going to have, you're going to lose the video, and you're not going to be able to go back and see things that happen. And the new system, the way it's set up in the proposal is that we're selling you the equipment, we're installing the equipment, and then we're going to provide a service to you for this equipment also, so that if anything happens to any product down the line for the period of 5 years, then it's a phone call, we come out and we take care of it. If the product is found to be faulty, we replace it at no cost to you. All those are included in the proposal. And what you then wind up with is a fully functional integrated system where the 2 systems can talk to each other. So if something happens in an access control area, it can also flag a camera, so the camera records and marks it also. So when the police go back to do an investigation or something, it quickly speeds up their time of having to do research on issues that occurred. So that's what we're proposing.
Well, so the camera system we knew was, when we had it installed, it was outdated at that point.
Right.
The card lock system, how old is that system?
As old as this building, so 4 years old.
4 years and it's not functioning.
Well, we've had a hard time getting the passwords, finally got the passwords, and then it locked up and we can't make cards, can't do anything. Yeah, it's frustrating.
Thank you. Yes, it isn't new to most of us over what's been happening and the situation we've been in. Keith has been preparing us for this because it's so needed. But I do have a couple questions on how we happen to choose this company, and especially over what we have been through. First of all, would like to know your history. Have you been in business longer than 6 months?
Stanley Security Systems is a national company, it's a global company. We have offices all across the country, so Stanley Security Solutions is available across the country.
And how long have they been in business?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's a corporation. They bought a number of different other companies that brought them into it. And with all that being said, Stanley itself has been doing security systems for well over 30 years that I've been involved with them.
Okay,
I've been in the business now since in the,
thank you.
I'm
So-
dating myself.
As far as vetting the company and references, who has checked that out?
So what we've done is, we actually went through state purchasing. And that's one of the reasons why we do not have to go out to bid. So they are recognized by the state of Nevada as a contractor with the experience and know-how and longevity to be part of the state purchasing system. So we just look to the state for their state purchasing requirements and references, and this was the company that
Thank you.
came out.
That's what I'm after.
Yes.
Because apparently we haven't been doing that as we've been going along sometimes.
They've been checked into.
Yeah, so my other question is on the actual amounts.
Mhm.
And you said we can buy this or we can pay a monthly fee. But there's no time frame. We pay a monthly fee forever?
Well, Laura has earmarked this money and it will be paid it will be paid all at once. There won't be any monthly fees
Okay, well, that answers that because
for the purchase.
there's no time frame. And I'm going, what? So, okay, better yet. All right, that answers mine. Thank you.
I've got some questions.
Okay.
My first question is resolution. When I was on the school board, we had security cameras. We could identify somebody going in and vandalizing as a human being, but we couldn't identify the facial features to identify the perpetrator. Where are we with this system?
Sure, we've gone to what we've gone to are multi-megapixel cameras, which are high-definition cameras, which allow more clarity, more pixels, better clarity. If the light comes in the background and washes somebody out, the technology's there that it takes the background out so you can still identify the person.
Is there any way that you can interface the system with the SO dispatch so that they can key in if needed on different cameras in the building?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The only requirement there would be just the software for them to have loaded onto their computer for viewing.
And this is also for future to integrate with the Civic Center, all of the county buildings down south and our county buildings up north.
When I was on the school board, they started putting cameras in the school. And my goal was to interface all those cameras with the dispatch in case we had a problem at the schools. Same concern again. I'd just like to see that happen. Okay, so in 5 years, this system is obsolete, broke down, whatever. What can you do to keep the system that you want to sell us updated so we don't have to go through a complete remodel?
No?
One of the things that we've also provided is a service fee, which anything that happens, that aspect of it takes over.
Yeah.
As technology changes and technology improves, we're moving more toward artificial intelligence, for example.
Right.
We're seeing more and more of that in the cameras. The system that I proposed is forward compatible as well as backward compatible.
Okay.
When I mean forward compatible is that as they go through and they're making changes to artificial intelligence or they're bringing analytics in or those kinds of things, those are simple plugins that are you have the ability to add into your recordings.
So you can just software update the stuff as
Yes,
we go.
Exactly.
Now, can you set it up so that Keith can check it from his phone or his home computer? Or is that too wide open?
No, it's not too wide open. As long as he has access to your VPN or to your network, and he can tunnel in, he has access from his smartphone.
Good. Robert, do you see any problems with trying to interface with dispatch? I don't wanna, gum up your workings over there, but I've been trying to do this since '06.
Good to see you.
Robert Quick for the Sheriff's Office. I actually sat in on some of the meetings that they had regarding this, and they've actually incorporated into this the licensing we need for access for our dispatch center.
Right.
So I have a question. Are you done, Art?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Question is, so where is all the where are the recordings gonna be housed?
Recordings?
Mhm.
They're stored on we call it a device. It's basically, it looks like a TiVo box or a DVR, NVR. We call them network video recorders.
So it's
And
on site? Or
It's on site.
It's on site.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so-
back in the corner back over here.
Okay, so my next question is, who has the authority to go in? Can anybody with a password go in and erase recordings, or is that like null?
No.
Okay,
The only person that will have the ability to delete or remove any is your administrator, the top administrator. There are different levels of access that are provided to an individual. In other words, I can be the administrator, to put it loosely, I'm the guy who's in charge of everything on it, and I have a password, and I can do anything with it.
okay.
And
who
you
is
as
who is our administrator over that system?
Currently, in the discussions, it was, I believe it was me.
Right.
Yes, that's right, it was. Didn't want to get things mixed up there, but it is the county manager, yes.
So you're the sole
I'm the
administrator,
sole,
okay.
yes.
I got one question.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Is there the possibility of any kind of off-site storage? I know, this building's probably pretty safe for fire and what's damaged, but, storing all your records in one place, would there be an option of a secondary off-site storage?
You have the ability of offloading, and you can actually go to the cloud, store to the cloud if you'd like. Of course, that's extra fees on, based on how much data you're recording and how much is being uploaded. But you have the ability of storing it on the cloud, and you also have the ability of recording at this location and then offloading or after 24 hours, offloading that video to another recorder in a different location if you so choose. The
And
system is not designed that way presently, but it can easily be adapted.
And how long are the videos? I guess it depends on how long the county decides to keep them.
I think we calculated a 30-day storage per camera.
So I think, my opinion is absolutely having the sheriff's office have access to them. And Anna, you mentioned, getting all of the other county facilities. Have you gotten any kind of cost estimate as far as what it costs?
We didn't go there because this was priority and we want to get this in, and then once we get this up and going, we're gonna slowly integrate the other and bring that to you as well.
And mind you, both systems are expandable and have the ability of adding, more licenses, more, prime example would be if you have a different location, you want to set cameras in there. It's just a recorder in the cameras that go in there, in the licenses. And Mr. Westengard would still have access to all of those cameras that are in remote sites as well. And the same thing with access.
I want to run a scenario by somebody loses their card. It sneaks in here, gets around in the building. We're going to be able to track that?
Absolutely. Every door that person goes through, it'll have the time that they went through it or that card.
Okay.
We won't say person, we'll use the card.
The card, right.
Because it's,
Okay.
if your card's stolen and somebody's using your card, it's,
So James Bond would have a little trouble getting in, huh?
yes.
Question, do we feel that 30 days is enough to keep, or should it not be longer? Only reason I state that is I've had situations where in previous business, right, that we had something happen and we didn't find out until 90 days later, and we couldn't go back to pull the footage.
Yeah. 90 days after.
I agree.
Right, 90 days after the fact, it would be rather difficult. I mean, you're talking hard drive space and hard drive capacities.
What about cloud?
Same thing, it's still going to be, now, I will say this, you have the ability to lock video in. Let's say you have an incident, something happens, you have the ability of locking that video to the recorder where it stays there until the administrator says, okay, this video is no longer needed, we can remove it.
But you have to know about it and lock it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you also have the ability of downloading that to a thumb drive or to a DVD or something like that as well.
Robert, on your system, how long is it saved for?
Robert Quick for the Sheriff's Sheriff's Office, it depends on our cameras. We currently have about 120 cameras in our building. And so some of them are roughly 90 days, some are up to a year. It just depends on the camera and the location of the camera. That they also record, they're not a 24/7 recorder. They record based on somebody being there.
Sure.
So it's not a full, just 24 hours of recording.
Right.
Okay.
So that's my other question. So if we set it up on that premise that it's motion activated, can you store for longer periods, so where you're not recording needless stuff?
Sure, absolutely. But that then becomes, you know, a judgmental thing of how long will it keep based on how much activity, it's based on how much activity. You know, the weekends, nothing's going on, nobody's here, it's not recording. During the week, you've got a lot of traffic going back and forth, meetings going on, you're gonna have more recordings, and that's gonna take up more space on the hard drive. But that can be offset by the non-active days and non-active times as well. So there's a good possibility. We calculated to where it would provide you 30 days storage. Will you get more than 30 days storage? You know, can I guarantee it? No, I can't guarantee it. But I can tell you more than likely, absolutely, you will get more than 30 days storage based on motion.
Yeah, I share Brian's concern because somebody falls today and in 120 days, we get a notice from an
Right.
attorney that they fell and we don't have the film, but we have the security system. I mean, the first thing that I would do if I were an attorney is say, look, they don't even have a good security system to back up their defense.
I will state that most municipalities, and I understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from, and I understand your concern most definitely. The standard, and I say standard in the sense that what is typical throughout the industry is 30 days storage. Most people will know something's happened within 30 days, and they can lock that video down to keep it from recording over. There are always going to be those incidences when, you know, somebody has up to a year to sue them.
Yeah,
Do you save all your video for a year based on something that, you know?
Well, I guess if you had 2 or 3 cameras, I guess you could save it for a year.
You could, yeah. But, I mean, the standard practice is between 2 weeks and 30 days storage. We calculated at 30 days. I feel comfortable in saying you're gonna get more than 30 days.
So, one of my other questions, I guess, talking about losing a card, you're looking at pretty much the same concept of what we have now.
Yep.
I know, like, say the BLM, they have cards. The outer doors, pretty much they're just for the outer doors. In interior doors, there aren't any security issues, but you also have a PIN. You have a PIN code. I don't know if that's an option to look at our outer doors that we could be using without, you know, these obviously out front and we have a key, but the other doors are,
Sure. You do,
As it is now, if our system was working, someone lost a card, we deactivate it and reissue a new one.
well, I understand that.
Okay.
I just, is maybe a little more security is, once they get in the building, but if you lose a card, you're gonna have a PIN, they're not gonna get in the building, period. And, cause you can't, unless you knew that PIN, you're not gonna get in. That was just a comment, is all.
But, or just to piggyback off that, I've had like the pin pad type security system in the past and the high maintenance. There's a circuit board that get pressed, and how many times are people not using their card and they're pressing, and then we're replacing those push button circuit boards all the time because they do wear out.
and the technology in the cards has vastly improved as well, and the card technology that we're providing is a dual processing. In other words, it's a handshake. The card says, okay, I'm a card, I'm here, and the reader says, yes, your card so-and-so, and you're okay to come in, so yes, you can come in, and they've made that handshake. Utilizing the PIN, all you're doing is saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, and that says, okay, well, give me your code, so you put the code in, and then it unlocks the door. So it's basically dual authentication is the way that they define that. So yes, it is more secure. You could do it to the certain front doors, but I will also remind you that we have with the access control system in conjunction with the video system, that if somebody presents a card that has been stolen or turned off or something like that, and if you know, they hit it, it's gonna give you the signal, or it's not going to allow them in, it's going to use the associated camera will also capture their image as well. And all that'll be documented as an issue that occurred.
You don't have a big sledgehammer that comes out and hits them.
I wish, I wish.
Would,
But dual authentication is with the pins, and, you know, the technology's available, and it's not that difficult to change out in the system that we proposed.
now you mentioned alerts. Would that send an alert to, okay,
That's where you're wanting it to go, that's.
to the sheriff's
they'll be-
office?
They'll be the first to know.
Any more discussion?
I got a question for Brian. You've dealt with security systems. Is it better to update them or just start all over with a new system?
No, I agree. I think if you can do firmware updates, I mean, that's exactly, I mean, that's where electronics are nowadays. You're buying electronics with, I mean, me personally, it's like, that's my first question. Well, your question, can you update it? Can you log in, plug in, and update it?
But, I mean, do we go with the 143 bid or the 195 bid? That's my question to you, Brian, because you had.
Well, there's two separate
Well,
systems.
they're two separate systems,
Yeah, one is for the cameras and one is for the card box.
so the proposal's for both.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're looking at a lot of money here, folks.
Okay, so we do have a motion?
No, not yet, that's what I'm asking for
Okay,
right
are
now.
you ready for a motion?
Yeah, are we ready for a motion?
Okay,
All right,
I'll
we
make
have
a motion that we approve the two proposals from Stanley Security to install a new camera system at the total cost of $143,085.79, and a new security system at a total cost of $195,098.28 in the Lander County Courthouse and Administration Building.
And a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome,
Aye.
thank you guys.
Look forward to
Thank you.
spending time with you guys.
See you around.
Excuse me, I do have one more question.
Sure.
What's the time frame for this?
Once we get the contract signed and delivered, parts, takes about a month. We could be done by the end of March if we get it going by the end of this month.
Wow.
Okay. Thanks, Anna.
All right,
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
Go ahead.
Would it be possible to move up to number 12?
Huh?
For Chelsea?
Uh-huh,
She's got her children here and rather than her sister.
number 12? Yeah.
She was right here.
Yeah.
Thank you, if we could.
Yeah,
That way we
that's
can
fine.
get it done.
So,
Kids were getting a little
where'd she
restless.
go?
I thought she was right outside.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner, maybe we could go on with number 2 until
Okay.
she's located. I thought she was just in the foyer there.
All right, no worries. All right, we'll
Thank
go
you.
back to number 2. County manager for possible action of, to approve, disapprove the resolution 2020-01, to augment of FY 1920 budget fund, general fund 001, and administrative assessment fees from 085 presented by the financial officer, and to approve the chair or vice chair to sign.
Kathy?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2020-01 of the Board of Lander County Commissioners, resolution to augment the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget of the General Fund 001 and the Lander Administrative Assessment Fees Fund, which is 085, Whereas certain funds of the approved budget require changes based on requests from department heads or elected officials, which changes are specifically described and detailed below, and whereas certain areas of the approved budget require changes to reflect budgeting according to generally accepted accounting principles, which changes are specifically described and detailed below, and whereas in the General Fund 001, Lander County Board of Commissioners desired to fund an additional $58,720, which brings the total appropriations to $19,301,024. The available resource for this augmentation came from a higher than anticipated fund balance. And whereas in the Administrative Assessment Fees Fund 085, Lander County Board of Commissioners desired to fund $22,000, which brings the total appropriation to $22,000. The available resource for this augmentation came from a higher than anticipated fund balance and passed and adopted this 23rd day of January 2020 and authorized the chair to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You didn't have to say a word.
I know.
Easy.
She's gonna stay though.
So yeah, we'll go ahead. Update from the fiscal officer for the current FY 2019-2020 financials.
Okay, Cindy Benson for the record, fiscal officer. For the accounts receivable for the second quarter of fiscal year 1920, the water and sewer was $308,953.96. Water and sewer miscellaneous, $948.36. Landfill, $28,685.63. Our total accounts receivable was $338,587.95. The outstanding balances as of December 31st, 2019 are water and sewer, $73,413.09. Water and sewer miscellaneous, $3,054.56. Landfill, $10,785.38 for a total of $87,253.03. The quarterly fund balance report for the second quarter of fiscal year 1920 is as follows. The total revenue for the second quarter is $3,816,873, which is up 1.59% compared to last year's second quarter. The total expenses for the second quarter is $6,253,838, which is down by 39.13% compared to last year's second quarter.
I do have a question on the outstanding balances. How old is that money?
Excuse me?
How old, you say outstanding balances, that's money that's not, we've not collected yet, correct?
Yes.
So how old is that money?
Within 120 days.
And then what do we do? What's our typical, what do we do with that?
Once we hit 190 days, well, Carrie sends out notices or invoices every month.
Okay.
Once they hit 90 days, she usually sends them a disconnect notice as well, or not a disconnect. For the landfill, it would be they couldn't use the service anymore.
Mm-hmm.
For water and sewer, it goes on to their property taxes. It's a lien that hits their property taxes.
Okay.
Thank you, Cindy.
All right, very good. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you,
Thank
Cindy.
you.
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and go to number 12.
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Mike. All right. So, the commissioners, a presentation to Chelsea Fox in appreciation for her life-saving skills at the Community Food Bank on November 8th, 2019.
just a little background here for the commission on November 8th, 2019, while volunteering at the food bank here in Battle Mountain. Mr. Engel,
Yes,
good to
right
see you
here.
again,
Nice to see you again.
suffered a full arrest heart attack. And Chelsea Fox was there to administer CPR and until the paramedics arrived and consequently fully saved Mr. Engel's life.
Outstanding.
Without any, so Chelsea, on behalf, you want to? On behalf of Lander County and the Lander County Commissioners, this life-saving recognition is presented to Chelsea Fox for a successful effort in saving a human life on November 8th, 2019, involving exceptional courage and performance, awarded the 23rd day of January 2020.
She came into my office after she'd done this, and she was sharing with me what she'd done. It was like that she had, it wasn't like, oh my God, I saved someone's life. She was just so calm about it, and I went, oh my God, you saved someone's life. You know, and she was so nonchalant, and I'm like, oh my God, Chelsea, thank you so much for your service. I'm just.
Well, and I think, not only it's just, yes, I started the procedure, which is what I received from my training through the rec center, which Sean is now head of. Awesome job, keep going. And, with thankfully that life-saving training, I was able to do the first step in keeping him alive and with us until the next, emergency responder came with higher training. So because of that and everything, I was able to do it. And it was more just, it was more of a humbling thing of just like, you know, just like that, anyone at any time can go down. And it was just, even though I was off the clock or I wasn't working and stuff, because I'm never really off the clock, I am always on duty, so.
Well, thank you so much.
It's very well story.
Well done, Chelsea.
And she was there within a couple seconds. From what I've learned since, I guess the brain, if
Do you want me to stand there?
Yeah, we're gonna all stand down.
Okay. Keep going.
if the brain loses oxygen or
They want
air
everybody?
for 2 minutes, then you're pretty much gone.
You have 4 minutes before oxygen is fully depleted out of your blood system, 2 minutes before there could be brain damage.
So, whatever brain damage.
Yes, he did turn purple. My daughter was there too. She turned when you turned purple. She saw the whole thing.
There were a lot of witnesses, except me.
You were there.
We get more of this. Nice picture.
Good job, Chelsea.
Thank you, Sean.
My best buddy.
We're good?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Inspiration to us. Thank you. Thank you.
And I will be taking CPR.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to add one thing to it because of this life-changing effect even in my life. Thank you for helping Mike Engel and stuff. I've actually been approached by the Red Cross and the director of Northern Nevada to become an instructor of Red Cross. So I will continue on making sure that not only kids, but adults, teenagers, and everyone of ages can be prepared to ever administer CPR or AED or any life-saving skill.
Very good, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maddie is 1 and I'm 4.
Yes, and you're. Thank you.
Thanks again, Chelsea.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute break, please.
Yeah, Austin, we're gonna go on break.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you there, Austin?
Here.
We're ready to go back on. All right,
Number 13.
we're on to number 13.
Yeah, number 13,
Oh,
correct?
no,
Or are we just continuing?
We're just continuing on with number 4.
Which order you want?
Yeah.
Okay,
Number
that's
4.
fine, yeah.
Okay, so, all right,
Where are we at?
number 4,
Okay.
all right. So, for possible action to approve, disapprove the fiscal year 2020 FAA Airport Improvement Program AIP grant application for the apron expansion project at the Battle Mountain Airport for an FAA grant amount of $2.3 million and the Lander County match of $153,334, and to approve the county manager to sign.
Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. I guess before we divide the project into two applications, we might want to describe the project as a whole, if that's okay. Because there might be some confusion about what we're doing in 2020.
Sure.
So basically, we've already designed part of this
Tom?
project.
Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
I'm sorry, well,
She has to read it in.
Oh, okay.
And then you
I
probably.
thought I just read it.
She did read it in.
I did read it in.
You should probably open up both of them since they're gonna discuss both of them.
Yes, she's gonna read in number 5 now.
Yes, you need to
Oh,
read
okay,
it.
I'm sorry, I thought the one word, I'm sorry. All right, so, for possible action to approve, disapprove the fiscal year 2020 FAA supplemental grant application for the West Apron Reconstruction Project at the Battle Mountain Airport for an FAA grant match of $2 million and the Lander County match of $134,334, and to approve the county manager to sign.
Okay, I'm Tom Lemonager with JUB.
David Meyer, JEB.
Okay, so the general scope of both of these applications, I'm gonna go over that, and then David's gonna describe the breakdown of the two applications and why there are two and that kind of thing. So, the project is, so the apron out at Battle Mountain, this is Battle Mountain Airport. The existing apron is from this point all the way to this point. The first thing that we're going to work on, and we've already designed, is the reconstruction of 740 feet of apron in the blue by 215 feet. And we're gonna reconstruct that area. In other words, the FAA has allowed us to design and build a apron that's suitable for the BLM traffic, where before that apron was just for general aviation traffic. So we have to dig down deeper. We have to go through the asphalt, through the aggregates, down 24 inches, plus or minus. So we call this a reconstruction. We're gonna work with the tie downs a little bit on that because we're taking the asphalt off. We can move tie downs around. We're gonna locate those better for circulation of aircraft through there and getting the bigger aircraft down on this side if necessary. And we know during the fire season that happens commonly, that BLM has to use this ramp for their aircraft. So it's good they're allowing us to use a pavement section that's suitable for that kind of loading. So that's the first project part of it. The other part that we've already designed. The other part is the westward expansion of the apron. It's 100 feet this way by 215 feet north and south. It gives BLM a little bit more room in general aviation aircraft since we're sharing this ramp at times. More room to operate. It also aligns up better the gravel taxiway that we built about a year and a half ago. It comes down. Its western boundary will be aligned with the western boundary of this expansion. Again, this section will be for heavier aircraft as well. So those are the two sections that we've already designed in FY19. So that's out of the way as far as design goes, but we're going to build it this summer in 2020. Along with, we got, well, stepping back, we got $2 million more of FAA funds that just came out of the blue. And they said, can you use it? And of course, we found a place to be able to use it, with your permission, of course, which is the east apron expansion, the green area that's 330 feet wide or long and 215 feet from north to south. This is going to be heavy aircraft again for BLM use. It's something BLM has been after and begging you guys for a long time. So with that extra money that we got, we can build that section over there. And then, because it's hard to see in this drawing, but here this diagonal taxiway that's below the red is the existing taxiway A1. It's kind of at an odd angle for any aircraft that are parked over here. So we convinced the FAA that we need to straighten that out as well. So that'll be suitable for heavy aircraft as well. It looks like a funny shape, but that's the shape
considering an aircraft that we have out there, that's the shape that FAA wants to have for that kind of movement. And so we're gonna have to move some edge lights, we're gonna have to move some signs around for that taxi lane, but that's kind of the project as a whole. We're going to have to design it this winter, this portion, design it, bid it, and build it along with this. So we'll build it all at the same time. We're gonna phase the project. David's gonna talk more about that phasing in detail, but we're gonna phase it such that aircraft can operate at all times, both the BLM aircraft and the general aviation aircraft, so there's no disruption, minimize the disruption out there at the airport. Cost, because we are digging down 24 inches everywhere, 9 inches of asphalt, 15 inches of aggregate, is $4.5 million. Your share of that is what you're applying for. The addition of those two is about 286, I think it's 386, some change. And the schedule for this, we're trying to get underway for design of this portion as fast as we can so that we can open bids in very early spring and start as soon in spring as we can, because this is about a 3 to 4 month job. Okay, David's gonna explain a little bit more.
Do you have any questions about the scope of what we're doing?
Just one, that was your time frame again, because I noticed in here you said we're going out to bid right away, probably in March or so. But it looked like the construction you had down from May through July.
No.
So May through July is the first portion. Then we'll get into this blue portion.
Okay, that was my question, because you said you're gonna try and do them all at once, but we're gonna do this one first.
So yes,
Okay.
we've got to phase it to keep some access to the apron while we work.
So there's
The
two.
first phase would go May to July. The second phase would go August to October.
There's two
Okay.
phases out there that we were talking
Yeah,
about.
Got
it's
it.
our rough.
So we're gonna be out there much of the summer and into the fall.
Yeah.
Hopefully not too deep into the fall.
And that phasing was put together in early meetings with both the airport folks that work out of the fixed base operator and the BLM to try to coordinate with them to be efficient while still allowing them to do their firefighting operations during the summer.
So they're on board with the tie-down scenario, the configuration for that, and the phasing on the project.
So,
Thank you. Well, it's pretty exciting that we can finally get the extra amount in there for our runways, because without the BLM, firefighters in here, that's
They should be very.
and we've been,
Yes.
really concerned about that for years, that we weren't gonna be able to get this, so it's exciting. Go ahead, David.
all right, well, if there's no other questions on the scope, we'll discuss how this funding breaks down on this project. So the first item listed on the agenda, the AIP fund, that's our standard airport improvement program that the FAA lays out for all of their funded airports, Battle Mountain and Austin and Lander County. They set aside $2.3 million of their money for this year to fund what was initially the West reconstruction and expansion. So the match to that, the $133,333 puts us at about $2.1 million on that. So we tried to fit as much of this blue, which is actually the discretionary, as we can with that money, and then figure out what we could do with everything else with the AIP. So traditionally, the AIP funding comes out June or July. That's when the FAA releases grants. Sometimes it stretches a little later than that. But our directive from the FAA was the supplemental or discretionary money is available now. We can write grants as soon as you're ready to get a grant. So we tried to take that direction and lay out our discretionary or supplemental grant project with the work that needed to be done first. And for the sake of the BLM, as firefighting season grows, they need us to do as much as we can, as early as we can, and turn that back over to them. So we took that discretionary money and we tried to estimate how far we could go with this blue reconstruction with that money. And so that money will be the discretionary portion, the $2 million that was awarded in November. November 12th was when it was announced. And then everything else, the green the green and the red will fall into our standard AIP because that will be done in the second phase anyway. So that's where that schedule falls. We're hoping if we can open bids at the end of March, our contractor's ready to break ground and start working in early May and put us on target to try to turn over that large portion of the apron back to the FA or to the BLM around the 4th of July, just typically when their fire season starts to pick up. So that's kind of our funding. The discretionary funding is being moved through the AIP program. It's a separate funding source, but it's the same program. That's why both have the traditional 6.25% match from the county, and those are the highlights.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Do you want to make a motion, Judy?
Well, I had just a question, actually for Keith or Cindy. Since this won't be completed until, basically our fiscal year 2021 starts, is this something we're gonna have to budget in for the budget?
If you guys approve it today with those amounts, then we'll include it in the next fiscal year budget,
Okay.
yes.
Do we want a motion for both items?
No, I'm doing separate.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020 FAA Airport Improvement Program grant application for the apron expansion project at the Battle Mountain Airport for the FAA grant amount of $2.3 million and the Lander County match of $153,334, and to approve the county manager to sign.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, so Patsy made a motion for the 2020 grant application to be approved, and Ryan second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020 FAA supplemental grant application for the West Apron Reconstruction Project at the Battle Mountain Airport for an FAA grant amount of $2 million and a Lander County match of $133,334, and to approve the county manager to sign.
Okay, we have a motion from Patsy and seconded by Art for the 2020 supplemental grant application. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 6. For possible action regarding the structural stability of the building at 67 Main Street, Austin, Nevada, formerly known as the Austin Youth Center, and direction from the commissioners on how to proceed. Possible options include, but not limited to, new building construction. Number 2, second bid from another contractor. 3, allow appoint a local Austin 501c3 nonprofit organization to conduct a systematic investigation which may include market research and public opinion poll in order to explore all possible future uses of the building and to bring it back to the recommendations of the board. And number 4, demolition. So.
Yes, before we start on this one, I would like to have Pete DeBay, our engineer, come up, or either you or Pete, because this, we contracted with Pete, and he's the one that gave us the information last time, what the building was, what was left, what we could do, because actually it's not a reconstruction, that we have very little left, but we need to work through all of the standardization policies through SHPO, which is our state historic preservation. And Pete is contracted with us to start on that, and he's been in touch with SHPO, so I kind of wanted his information before we started on it. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name's Pete Dubay, and I'm an architect, not an engineer. And as Commissioner Waits indicated, we are under contract with you currently through Anna Pinola. So we went out in early December, and the team was myself, historic architect. I brought a structural engineer with a strong background in historic structural engineering. We brought a general contractor that does a lot of restoration and renovation work with us. And we brought mechanical and electrical engineers, so that the hope was to go into the building, to do a complete assessment of it, an evaluation of it, all the building systems, and come back with what we hoped was a small, medium, and large kind of plan moving forward. After we were done with our meeting, we did conclude that there's no small, medium, it kind of immediately jumps to a large. We differ from the prior engineer's report in that we don't propose a complete demolition. We can retain the perimeter walls for the most part and just shore them up and put in a new foundation system and a new structural roof. So we can keep the footprint, keep the relationship to the street, and this might give us an opportunity to restore the look back to a more period appropriate image that we have from the Library of Congress. So that was kind of why we stopped where we're at now, because that's a little bit different from where we hoped to go. It's a fairly larger project in terms of the financial impact. So we wanted to kind of come back to you. Again, we're under contract to prepare a report and to meet with SHPO, and we can do that, but we need to know whether it's the intent of this board to completely demolish the building, which we don't recommend, or to go ahead and rebuild it. And if we rebuild it or rehabilitate the building, then we can assist in some grant opportunities, specifically for historic resources in the state of Nevada. And there's a couple of those. I'm not sure if you're familiar with all of them. Community development block grants are one of them. They're administered through GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development. This type of a project would qualify for that. We have reached out to them. They're excited about preserving this historic building. To give you an example of, and how that would work is that Lander County would be the grant applicant, and you're eligible for the funding. So we don't need a 501c3 or any other type of entity to administer it. We've done this locally. We did it for Humboldt County on behalf of the Pleasant Senior Center. So the senior citizens of Humboldt County actually received the benefit of the grant, but it was applied for through Humboldt County. We also did the same thing for the town of Gardnerville. Douglas County was a grantee, but the town handled all of the administration of the grant, and we assisted them in that. To give you an example of the size and the breadth of it, they'll help from planning, so our type of fees to develop plans for whatever we propose to do, to actual construction. They just approved, I think, $80,000 for planning for the Fernley Depot in Lyon County, and then they approved over $500,000 for Caliente Depot for that particular project. So it's a pretty good source of funding. The other option we have is the Commission for Cultural Centers and Historic Preservation. That's also administered through SHPO. It's also a grant program, and they encourage any kind of cultural centers. We actually worked with them on St. Augustine's Cultural Center, which is the old Catholic Church in Austin, and that's another good program. And they have a good series of funding as well. Unfortunately, on both of those, the deadlines are February of this year. We've kind of missed this cycle, but they're annual. It does take 6 to 8 months to kind of get ready to get your plans done and move forward. So we've done that. We've also, and I'm not sure that the county be interested, we also do a lot of work with USDA. Theirs is more of a loan program, so, and I'm not sure you guys want to look into that. So I guess from our perspective, we need to know where you want us to go. We were going to do a report that told you how to sort of fix this up. I think in this case it's more of a reconstruction, so if that's the direction, then we kind of need to know that.
So I have some questions. So under the funding that's already been provided for you, is there a possibility where you go out for the grants for the county, and since you're already going to be working with SHPO anyway, that you go out for the grants and deal with this building since we've already funded?
I think we can. We'd have to run some numbers. You know, we had a lot of money in there for mechanical, electrical that we haven't spent. We did expend some of the money for the trip, so I could look at that. We could revise the proposal, you know, kind of amend the scope of work and see how far we could go with that, but yes.
Because in the grants, isn't there, some of them that have administrative fees that,
Correct.
where you apply for these grants and your fees will be written into the grant as well?
Yes.
So that kind of takes the burden off the back of the county and puts it with you.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's right.
all right.
So all you would need from the county if we kept on with this, basically would be a point person
Yes.
in the county that we could
Correct.
just keep checking with, right? But we don't have to take our staff to go out to do all this. You can work the part with SHPO.
Correct.
Of course, my opinion, and when we look at number 3, it said to explore possible uses and do market research and all that type of thing. We've had 2 or 3 meetings locally in Austin with the communities and such over what they would like to do, and there was a youth center board that also had some input, and of course they really wanted to save, if not the whole building, which of course is impossible, the site. And because it's so vital, it's right on Main Street, it's the first thing you see, plus our history, and of course the bell tower we saved, so we know that's going to be part of it. So I think whatever way we decide to go on, I'm hoping the commissioners will say, we've got to go forward. We're not just going to demolish it and put up a new building or a double wide or whatever we decide to do. It will take some time, but I do think that's extremely important. And I think we've got the input from Austin already to do that. I think our meetings have said where they're coming from. And I will ask, may I ask Michelle, is there anybody there that has any comments on Austin?
Austin, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, are you there? Do you have anything you want to say?
We couldn't really hear what you were saying. Can you give us like a really quick, brief overview of what was just said? Sorry, can you tell me?
Oh, hello. Yes, we're just trying to figure out as far as if we're going to, what the options are as far as doing what we're going to do with the building. And one of the things on the table was to work with Pete to do grants to save the building that way. And Patsy was just saying that she was, I don't want to speak for you, Patsy, so, well, can you hear her?
Yes, I said with our community meetings that we have had, my understanding was that Austin wants to definitely stabilize what we can, salvage what we can, and rebuild it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Declining from Austin.
Yeah,
For the record.
yes. You guys have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Well, when Pete helming again, when Pete goes in and applies for these grants, we are going to make sure that the bell and the bell tower are put back up, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
No, what's that?
Hi.
Robin Beach, Austin Chamber of Commerce. I just want to really back up what Patsy has said about the importance of this building being in the community. I don't think tearing down is the answer. I think rebuilding and restoring what we can. I've seen your preliminary report and I thought it was incredibly insightful, and I love the idea of grants. We, the board, Austin Chamber Board, and the residents really feel like we need this center in the town. It is important to us. We need some place where we can gather. We need some place that can be used for anniversaries and events, and something with a commercial kitchen would be fabulous. But I think most importantly, restoring it, making sure we get the bell tower and the facade and the facade fitting the town. It's just, I think it's more important than everybody realizes, and I just want to convey that.
Well, I know that when we're looking at the restoring of it, we were restoring it for the history of the building, not for it to be a youth center.
Yes, I
So I
understand
wanna make
that.
sure that that's
Yes, and the
very
history
clear.
is so important,
The history
but we
is what
could
we're
also
looking at.
make it a building that is multifunctional for the town and the community. And really, and that I think is just more important than anybody realizes.
So, question, as far as, the restoration of just the building separated from the youth center, because when we're putting in the grants, if we're putting in the grants, having to do the grants specifically for the building, not to turn it into the youth center. So I'm gonna make sure that that's.
Yes.
I don't know
Youth
if
center
I-
would be a different.
Totally,
project.
it's gonna be something
Yes.
different, so I wanted to make sure that,
Did you get correspondence about the youth center with pictures in it and everything? I
um,
got something on an email about that.
Thank you. Yes, it's been called the youth center for so long, and so we refer to it as that, but all the way through, we've been very, very sure that it is a Lander County building per se, and the youth center was just what they were using it for. But we may have to go to another name of what we'd like to call it to be sure, so there's not any misconception. But what Art has just mentioned is actually one of our folks in who has a history of Austin, and that is Phil Marshall. And he was at one of our community meetings, and he has expressed a big interest of perhaps his foundation even handling the logistics for us. Now, it didn't say anything about grant writing, it just said logistics in the first information I got. But that's something to consider as we go on, because it may be a way for someone else to be involved in. He sent some renderings that he had, which actually looked more like a commercial building on the outside. Wasn't our youth center or our old historic center and fire hall like we were thinking of. And I think that's where we're going with this. But the inside has some general information. So I think this is going to be ongoing. I mean, it's something that we have to look at again, and Mr. Marshall will probably be contacting us, so it will come up. Perhaps we do have an outlet, like I said, with the foundation that might be able to help us with logistics. If he works with our architect and uses the conditions that we need to adhere to, because before, when Mr. Marshall did the visitor center, it wasn't a historic area. We weren't working with SHPO and state regulations and federal standardizations and things. So I think it's real important that we keep our architect on this. So my recommendation would be, and I'll throw it out before I do a motion and see how you feel, is that we continue with Pete to do the reporting, to work with SHPO to see what we can identify and where we go for right now with the county-owned building and us just naming a person that they can talk to on our side to go forward. And then it'll come before us if we decide to go with, like I said, a foundation or somebody handling logistics to perhaps work with Pete. How do you feel about that?
Is that a motion?
No, I said I'm going to do a recommendation
I'm fine with
before
that.
I do a motion.
I like that idea.
Okay, all right.
I just have one question. How much work additional work would it be for someone in county to be the point person for this project? Because I don't want to burden one person with a bunch of paperwork.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I'll let, maybe Pete, you can give us an idea when you say point person is to somebody to run things off of when it has to come before the commission or not.
Right, well, so, I'll give you the example of Gardnerville Station, which is a project we did for the town of Gardnerville. We were contracted with the town. The town was a sub-grantee to the county, so we worked with a planner in the planning department. Every time I had to ask a question or do something for CDBG, I would bypass the town and include them, but I would send it to the planner would send it to CDBG. That's all. I just need somebody, the correspondence, communication, anything official has to come from the grantee, which would be the county, not from the architect, so it does involve, hitting the reply or the forward
yes,
button, or
yeah,
maybe
but
reframing it or
they're
cutting and
not going
pasting.
out and doing anything, the
Correct.
majority of the work would all be done.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Okay, I will make a motion that the county continue our contract with Mr. Dubé to look into what we can salvage and perhaps rebuild for our building at 67 Main Street in Austin. gonna leave this right now with our county manager to work on it, on who they would like to see at least work with Pete, for information, so he knows where we're going on it. Is there anything else we need on that?
Does Ted need to review the contract before?
Oh, no, we're already contracted with Pete, yeah.
You're saying the point person should be Keith, or should it be our building
It's gonna be
inspector?
Keith to start with, if he wants to appoint someone else,
Yeah.
that's fine,
Okay, all right.
but I'm putting him in charge to start.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So, Patsy made the motion to continue the contract, excuse me, and having Keith the point person, and Art seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, and that's so like I said, for the full reconstruction of that building.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Pete.
All right, going on to number 7. For the clerk's office, for possible action to approve, disapprove, or modify a contract between Lander County Clerk, and the State of Nevada Secretary of State to approve, and to approve the chair or vice chair to sign.
Good morning, Sadie Sullivan, Lander County Clerk. We are just changing the dates to be extended on the contract. It's been emailed over to legal, and just looking for your blessing.
And the only thing, like you said, was the date?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve a modified contract between Lander County Clerk, and the State of Nevada Secretary of State, and approve the chair or vice chair to sign. We're extending the contract term from June 30th, 2020 to August 31st of 2021. Contract will be effective upon approval to August 31st, 2021, unless terminated by either party.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
This part? Okay. I'm gonna read this part.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to recess the Board of Lander County Commissioners and to reconvene the meeting of the Lander County Liquor Board, composed of the Lander County Commissioners and the Lander County Sheriff. All right, so for possible action regarding Lander County liquor license holder Midway Market for failing to pay their required license fee.
May I ask a question? In reading through the information, and all of the calls and contacts you had to make for this, my question is, was this person notified that they were on the agenda today?
Not by us, but they did they seen the agenda when it came out and they paid for it that day. So this issue's been resolved.
So you found a remedy.
Yeah, evidently the notices didn't work.
Just out of curiosity, how much money are we talking about?
$25, I think.
30.
How much? 40? Not much.
That had to be a clerk on this.
You know, with this, and I've spoken with our chair about this, because when you're looking over all the extra work you had into it, and I'm wondering if we can put on the agenda at some point to perhaps look at paying liquor licenses instead of quarterly, annually, and then if they have a gaming license with it, they can continue to pay quarterly, because I know that runs into a lot of money. But it seems to be kind of a problem sometimes for people to pay, and you're evidently doing a lot of work before you even came this far, with other folks too, right?
Well, as
So
a
is that
general rule,
something-
and the chair can help me out on this, we've usually didn't have a lot of problems, maybe one, continuously. But we talked about that years ago, and if we went on a year basis and say within a quarter they quit, then we gotta reimburse them, am I correct? Kathy, on that? That's why we do a quarterly deal, it's more convenient. In other words, if you get a liquor license for 1 year, an annual deal, and you only use it for 2 or 3 months and then sell out, or whatever the case may be, now the county has to go back and reimburse them. And prorate it out. So that's why we've done quarter. And it has not, to my knowledge, and like I say, the chairperson, Kathy, when she was the secretary, dealt with all this. We didn't really have a big issue. Maybe 1 or 2, and when we'd notify them, and oh, we forgot, they'd come in and take care of it.
Just think it might be a lot easier for our business people too to pay. Maybe we could do it non-refundable or something like that and put it on the agenda and talk about it.
Well, I know with all the years that I did it, which I did it many years, that we normally did not have a problem. Because you have the same liquor license and gaming license, people, you don't really change them up very often. And it's, there is a few of them that the same thing goes on and it's trying to collect. And it is a lot of work to just, for that minimal fee of the $30, it's a minimal fee. But it's a lot of work to chase after them. And then, finally when it has to come to this, then they pay it. And I was always told, but mind you, was there since '87 at the sheriff's office, that they wanted the money in certain quarters, and that's why it's received at certain times. And so that's always what I had gone by. I don't know if we can revamp a few things as far as when they don't pay, and they have 15 days to pay, and when they don't, there starts to be penalties. And I think a percentage, and if we bring, we can have that ordinance changed till we come back and have that done, that would probably stop that if they knew that they were going to.
See, it's gonna take an ordinance change to do this, to put some teeth into it.
I understand that, and I know we're off a little bit. I just wanted to throw it out, so perhaps we could do an agenda item if we so choose later and discuss it.
We can talk about it.
I was just gonna say that's not on the agenda.
I got a question for Ted. How can you sell alcohol if you don't have a license? If you don't pay for it, you don't have it.
That's true, but there's nothing in the ordinance, as the sheriff points out, that, and as the Madam Chairwoman points out, there's nothing in the ordinance with any teeth to, this is the only avenue we have. The only avenue we had by ordinance. So to answer your question, you can revamp the ordinance, you can put whatever you wish in it, you can raise the fees, you can penalize for being late, for not payment, and that usually solves the problem, but right now, we don't have it.
Yeah, I think that what I'm hearing is we need to revisit this in the future.
Yes, put it as an agenda item, go for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
You're welcome, Ron.
All right, so we're going to adjourn from the meeting of the Lander County Liquor Board and reconvene in the meeting of the Lander County Board of County Commissioners. All right. For possible action to approve, disapprove the appointment of 2 individuals to serve at the Public Lands Use Planning Advisory Planning Commission, which currently has 4 opening terms ending June 30th, 2021, and to consider all the following applicants: Steve Steinmetz and Louis Lanny.
Okay, I'm the commissioner on this particular committee, and we lost Frank Whitman. That was a big loss. We lost the quorum when Frank left, so please vote these people in, and we still need to advertise for, I think, 1 more.
So, just so the board's aware, this was on the last agenda.
Right.
It's been taken care of, so it is properly been advertised. We continue to advertise, even though we have the 2 applicants. We continue to advertise regularly for any openings on any boards until we get some interest.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve
Wait,
Steve's.
wait 1 second. Go ahead.
With adding these two, it does create a quorum.
I can't hear you.
With the adding, she's asking, with adding these two, does it create a quorum? Do you have
Yes,
a quorum?
yes, we have a quorum
Okay.
with these two. Louis is on there, Steve is new, so Steve would be the third. We have Dan Tamara.
Okay.
We still have Dan Tamara on there too.
Yes, Dan Tamara is on there.
Yeah.
Louis and Steve Steinmetz will make a quorum.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion unless Art wants to go ahead.
All right.
That's fine, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve Steve Steinmetz and Leilani to the Public Land Use Advisory Planning Commission, term ending June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Who is speaking on the line from Austin?
Michelle Plano?
Michelle. All right, thank you. All right. Number 10, for possible action to approve, disapprove the appointment of one individual to serve on the Lander County Economic Authority, which currently has one opening, term ending June 30th, 2021, and to consider all the following applicants to include Robin Rich and Louis Lanny.
Actually, I know we have a request from both of them, but Robin is here today. So I wanted you to know she came to do that. And I know Mr. Lani has stepped up for many, many years in a lot of different capacities to help us out with a lot of boards. I know this is the first time Robin has requested any kind of a board for the county.
Yes.
So if you had anything to add.
Oh, Robin Veach, for the record. Lander County resident for almost 3 years, business owner in Lander County for 2 now, and president of the Austin Chamber, and feel that it's time to put myself out to the community more and get on more boards where I feel I can make a good impact. I think I'd be reasonably fabulous at it, so thank you for your consideration.
How long have you been in the community, Robin?
Sir, it'll be 3 years on
3
May
years.
31st that we relocated to Southern Lander.
Well, with my thank yous to Mr. Lani, I will make a motion that we approve the appointment of Robin Beach to serve on the Lander Economic Development Authority for the opening term for June 30th, 2021 to represent the South.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first by Patsy, second by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. All right. 11, for possible action to approve, disapprove the appointment of one individual to serve on the Lander County Convention and Tourism Authority, which currently has one opening in the position representing hotels, term ending June 30th, 2021, and to consider all the following applicants to include Michelle Dunham.
Thank you. We have not had any representation in the South for a while on this board, and so perhaps we talked her into it, I think, but I'm very happy to make a motion to approve the appointment for Michelle Lanham to serve on the Lander County Convention and Tourism Authority, representing hotels, and the term is to end June 30th, 2021.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Going to number 13. All right. Presentation and update from the Nevada Association of Counties, NACO, as presented by Dagny Stapleton and Vincent Guthrie. Guthrie, sorry. And I studied that going, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah, thanks.
Morning.
He's looking to see if it's already been faxed.
It's already in our book.
Okay, this one is in your book?
Yeah, it's there.
I think so.
It's there.
Do we need to do something here?
We need to
It's
log
not a-
in.
it's not a lock screen.
There's no password.
Oh, okay.
And you should be able to put your phone there.
Yeah, it's already in.
Kathy? I think the summary of bills that we have in our book, it looks like this is maybe a shorter version, perhaps.
Do you need this then?
It should be. It's not.
I think so, because he just passed this out, and I said,
I'm gonna pass it out.
we have the same thing in our book.
We have, or do you
Yeah,
have, it's
yeah.
the same version?
Yes.
All right, so
I'm
we're
just
good.
passing it just in case, because that's what he's
Do you want to do
All right.
receipts? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeehaw. Okay, we got it figured out.
IT problem solved.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here at your commission today to do a presentation for you. My name is Dagny Stapleton. I'm the Executive Director of NACO, the Nevada Association of Counties. This is Vincent Guthrow. He's our Deputy Director at NACO. The Nevada Association of Counties is the statewide organization whose members are all 17 of Nevada's counties. We want to thank Lander County very much for your membership in NACO. These right now are our current officers. We would like to thank Commissioner Waits for her service to NACO this past year. She was our president in 2019. We had a great year. Commissioner Waits did a lot of work on behalf of Nevada counties. She represented us in Washington, D.C. and provided critical leadership for us at NACO. Next week, our 2020 officers will be sworn in. This will change our executive committee by only one member. Commissioner Lucy from Washoe County will become our vice president. Commissioner Jim French from Humboldt County will become our president this month. And Commissioner Allen is your county representative on our board, and we want to thank her as well for her engagement with NACO. Also, the NACO board includes affiliate members. Our affiliates are those statewide associations representing your other county elected officials. So, for example, Clerks Association, assessors, recorders, sheriffs, etc., all have non-voting seats on our board, as well as at least one representative, of course, from all of Nevada's 17 counties on our board. This is our mission at NACO. We were created in 1924, so just coming up on 100 years. We're enabled in statute, NRS 244. And I just want to say a few words about the importance of counties in our state. Counties in Nevada predate our state and most of our state cities. Counties have always provided critical infrastructure and services to Nevada's residents. And because 11 of Nevada's counties, including Lander County, were organized prior to statehood, we could argue that counties in Nevada historically may be the most important form of representative government in our state, and as always, are the government closest to the people. 11 of Nevada's 17 counties were organized prior to Nevada's statehood in 1864, and within 5 years of statehood, Nevada's 15 counties were incorporated. So this is our mission, to support cooperation and coordination amongst Nevada's counties. Nevada's counties, small and large, share many similar issues at the state, local, and federal level, regardless of their makeup. And our staff of 4 at NACO works hard to be nimble and provide resources and support to Nevada's counties. And we do that in the following ways. Our board meets once a month and functions as a forum for collaboration amongst Nevada's counties. At our most recent meetings, just a couple of examples, our members discussed a project between UNR, the counties, and the federal agencies to create a county economic assessment report for each of Nevada's counties. We also discussed the lack of funding increases from the legislature for the Cooperative Extension Program and a strategy going forward regarding funding for extension. We also discussed a proposal to address overpopulation of wild horses and burros, always a popular topic at the NACO board. And the board approved an actuarial study of Medicaid match assessment costs that are assessed to all the counties and to your county. At NACO, we also work to provide information to our members. In 2019, our annual conference took place in Washoe County. We did have a few of you out there. Thank you so much to those of you who attended. We had a number of educational sessions, speakers, and networking opportunities for commissioners and staff.
We had panels including discussions on county fiscal issues, federal and state political updates, cybersecurity tips for counties, criminal justice reform, and county roads, county RS 2477 roads. All of the PowerPoints from the conference can be found on our website. And finally, the NACO board has approved Churchill County as the host for our conference in 2020. So we will be out in Fallon on November 16th of this year, and hope that you can all join us there. We also provide educational workshops throughout the year. February 7th, in just a few weeks at 9:30 in the morning at our offices in Carson City, we will host a workshop on how and why to write a county water resources plan. Other workshops coming up in 2020 include an update on Nevada's open meeting and public records laws, oversight of public defenders in Nevada, how that system is working, and then just prior to the 2021 legislative session, how a bill becomes a law in Nevada and a guide to advocacy at the legislature. Our website is also a valuable source for information. We have various publications relating to county governments and other resources on there. And then finally, NACO provides advocacy for counties at both the state and federal levels. The most important way we do that is at the Nevada legislature. We're there most days during the legislative session. About half of all the bills introduced impact how counties operate and the laws under which counties are governed, and so we engage on those on behalf of all counties. During the interim, we also follow regulatory hearings as well as interim legislative committees, of which there are many. This interim, we're watching the regulations for bills that were enacted in 2019, including as well discussions on Indian defense, as well as changes to prevailing wage that affect counties. This interim, we're also planning a rural tour for legislators to make sure that our legislators, especially from other parts of the state, the urban areas, can come out to the rural counties, meet some folks, and try to get an understanding of what rural communities are like and what some of your challenges may be, and of course, to help educate them about all the things that county government does. We're beginning to planning for that now, and it'll be up for discussion in February at the NACO board. NACO keeps in regular contact with staff from our Nevada's congressional delegation. We travel to DC each year to talk to our representatives about county issues. In 2019, for example, we discussed Medicaid funding, grants that are used in county jails, PILT funding, of course, from the federal agencies, and various public lands issues, including the military withdrawals, sage grouse, and transportation issues. We also work on statewide issues that affect counties. A big one that we always pay attention to is cooperative extension. NACO's position regarding cooperative extension, of course, is to ensure that counties have an adequate voice in that program, considering counties are the largest funder for cooperative extension. NACO also represents and makes appointments to a number of, and has representatives and makes appointments to a number of statewide committees. Some examples of these include the Committee on Local Government Finance, which oversees your county finances, the Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles, State Land Use Planning Council, the Open Meeting Law Task Force, the Board of Indian Defense, and I could go on. Those are just some of the areas that NACO engages on. Finally, at NACO, approximately 5 years ago, we hired a staff person dedicated to natural resources and public lands issues, and we work on a variety of issues in this area. We've been an ongoing stakeholder in the BLM Forest Service sage grouse plans, as well as on the Fallon military withdrawal. We've worked on ESA issues, also the bi-state sage grouse, and of course wild horse and burro issues. The NACO board has a Public Lands and Natural Resources subcommittee that works in more detail on public lands and natural resources issues, and that subcommittee provides guidance to the board. It's open to any commissioner or even county staff if you'd like, so if there's anyone who'd like to participate on that, please let us know. We're also happy to provide a more detailed update on sage grouse or the Fallon military withdrawal if there's any interest in that today. We have a recap for you on the 2019 legislative session, some of the bills that impacted counties. As I said, we spent a lot of time there, and I wanted to provide a general overview of key bills that passed in that session, and then a little bit about what we expect in the 2021 session. When we started this last session, many of the conversations that we had with the board and our legislative committee was that there were a lot of things that would have a significant impact on the operations of counties, specifically fiscal impacts on counties. So we worked hard on a number of fronts, and together with other county lobbyists, as well as other local governments and folks from the business community, to walk back a lot of these bills. And in the end, I think we can say that we came out of that session much better than when we started. We had a number of meetings with legislative leadership during session and are happy to report that 5 out of our 6 NACO bills that we put forward did get signed into law. Vince will provide an update on NACO's legislative process and a little bit more information on the NACO bills. And then I have a couple of topics that I wanted to provide more information on as well.
Morning.
Good morning, Vince.
Hello. So, yeah, I just want to provide a sort of an overview of NACO's legislative agenda this session and begin by mentioning that the NACO board has a legislative subcommittee. They met regularly during the interim, and then we do have weekly meetings during session. They provide NACO staff and the board with guidance and information on pending legislation, and without their feedback and expertise of the NACO Legislative Committee, our advocacy at the Nevada Legislature would have been much more difficult. So just to recap, NACO gets 5 bill draft requests, but we also had a priority that we introduced with a senator, the chair of government affairs, and I'll go over those bills now. So the first bill that was passed and signed by the governor is Assembly Bill 21. This provides a solution to the problem of smaller county boards, such as TV boards or water boards, that are not able to meet a quorum due to a lack of population and term limits. We discovered that Humboldt County and Nye County both had boards that were no longer able to conduct business of managing budgets and critical infrastructure for their communities. So AB 21 was passed and signed by the governor, and what it does is provide rural counties the authority to make any small board that cannot meet a quorum an appointed board. In order for the Board of County Commissioners to utilize this authority, they must first determine the number of members serving on the board, currently serving, and if there are not enough members to allow for a quorum, then through an ordinance process, the Board of County Commissioners can make the members appointed versus elected. If there are enough members to have a quorum on that board, then a majority of the members must vote to make themselves appointed. So those are the parameters of how that works. Senate Bill 21, this is a bill that addresses 911 surcharges. I'm aware that Lander County does not assess this surcharge, but this bill would enable funds from the county 911 surcharge to be used for audits of the fee collection system. There are a number of counties that impose that surcharge. Senate Bill 13. Under Senate Bill 13, all counties will now be able to create a nonprofit organization in time of emergency. The idea for this bill came following the 1 October tragedy in Clark County. There was a need for county authority to create a nonprofit to be able to receive and create an account of all the donations that were sort of flooding in from the community and even around the country and even worldwide. When we discussed this with our board, we realized that there were actually other counties that had similar concerns about being able to deal with donations and assure that those donations were being distributed to victims fairly. Also, Senate Bill 48, this is sort of coined the rural diesel tax bill. Rural counties will now be, by a 2/3 vote of their commission or a ballot measure, be able to tax diesel fuel up to 5 cents per gallon to fund road maintenance. Currently, rural counties can collect a county gas tax on gasoline for county roads, and now you can pass an ordinance to deal with that for diesel as well, up to 5 cents. Senate Bill 48 also allows for a portion of the revenue collected to be used for truck parking infrastructure. There is a threshold minimum, but those are the provisions of Senate Bill 48. We had a bill that addressed changes to the primary system in Nevada. It did not pass. It passed the first house, and then it did not get up for a vote in the Senate. Lastly, as I mentioned, regarding NACO's legislative priorities, we worked with Senator David Parks, the chair of the Senate Government Affairs Committee, to introduce a bill to make reforms to the Office of Public Administrator. With the passage of Senate Bill 460, counties will be allowed to make the Office of the Public Administrator an appointed position through a local ordinance. I do have a couple other issues to discuss, but I'm happy to take questions on NACO bills if the board has any.
I have a question. Yeah, could you expound on SB 207 for me a little bit?
Sure. That's one of the bills I can go into, but I can discuss that now.
No, that's fine if you're going into
Okay, so Senate Bill 207, it deals with apprenticeships on public works jobs. So that bill, while heavily amended, it's effective January 1 of this year. There is a waiver process if there is that apprenticeship is not available for public works jobs. The labor commissioner, we've worked pretty diligently with the labor commissioner to understand, because we supported that waiver process, and we wanted to see how that was going to be implemented. So the labor commissioner has actually created a pretty streamlined approach to how that works, and there's a one-page form on their website where you can apply for public works jobs apprenticeship waivers. And that's how that would work. But otherwise, if the apprenticeship is available, there is a requirement to use that on public works jobs.
Okay. And then my other question was, maybe you could expand on
Sure.
AB 413.
Could you please, let's see, I gave you all my copies, so let me see if I have them almost all memorized, but.
Yeah, it's the business impact statement on any ordinance.
Correct, so.
AB what, Brian?
Huh? AB 413.
Right, so counties are required to consider, an item on the agenda, it is required that you consider what impact that might have to private business and include that on the agenda. That is a requirement under AB 413.
So to include a business impact statement.
Correct.
Any ordinance, so,
So you're required, if I can just jump in, you're required to make a determination whether a certain ordinance would impact business. So if you are gonna pass an ordinance to do something, you have to say, is this gonna impact business? If you think it will, you then have to include a
Okay.
business impact statement. And so basically what the bill does is that requirement was already on the books. It basically just creates a penalty if you don't do that, and allows the affected person to sue to make the ordinance void if you did not discuss the impact to business of a certain ordinance.
so when you say we have to include that business impact statement, so we're creating a statement and we're agendizing it to alert the potential business person that this ordinance could affect their business, or?
Commissioner,
Yes.
we did this in the Austin water sewer too.
Oh,
Remember we had the
Yes.
business impact
Yes,
statement?
gotcha.
And Kyla did that and sent a letter to all the businesses, and she got replies, and then the staff determined there was no negative business impact.
Gotcha, okay.
And you guys found that to be true after reading the report. So we are complying with that.
right.
So, I got a question. So, if there's a new business coming into town, we need to agendize it and research it and have an economic plan?
Only if there's an ordinance in development that has anything to do with
Okay.
that.
Any other questions? Okay, great. So there are just a couple of high priority issues that I wanted to take a moment to discuss with the board. The first one it deals with public records. During the 2019 session, there were numerous bills introduced that dealt with various reforms to the public records law. NACO and other local government lobbyists worked to kill Assembly Bill 371, which we believe would have had significant impacts on local governments and our ability to comply with the public records law. The more comprehensive bill that passed addressing public records was Senate Bill 287. So this legislation, as first drafted, had significant impacts to local governments. It included $100 a day fines to county staff, not the entity, for not fulfilling public records requests. It also eliminated the balance test of local governments on what is in fact a public record, and also enabled people to impose additional fines of up to $250,000 for each violation, again directly to the employee, not to the entity. So the workable compromise that was brokered by NACO, other county lobbyists, city lobbyists, it provided for some modernization to the public records law, but we retained local government's authority to protect citizens' right to privacy and to determine what a public record is. And we can still recoup costs for voluminous records requests that local governments might receive. Monetary penalties were included in the final compromise, but ultimately those fines are determined by a court, and they would determine if and how much a county would be fined for not complying with the records law. There was some other high-profile issues. There were changes to prevailing wage this session. The biggest change was the lowering of the threshold for which public works jobs prevailing wage applies to. This threshold was set at $250,000 in the 2015 session. This session, in a bill sponsored by the Speaker of the Assembly, it was lowered to $100,000. We've discussed Senate Bill 207. I did want to sort of highlight some good news on prevailing wage. A bill that NACO supported, Senate Bill 243, provides for 4 regions for determining the prevailing wage, so that in rural areas the prevailing wage will be set within a rural region and not tied to Clark or Washoe counties. This bill also did another reform, which is to simplify the reporting of the prevailing wage, which should provide some stability in wages on public works jobs. So those are some of the highlights, and then I know Dagny has a few things that she wanted to discuss that impact counties, and we'll go from there.
I have a question on the prevailing wage. So when you're going out to bid for something, it's going to be done county by county as far as what the prevailing wage is going to be?
There's a
So it's not as-
region, so you, I would have to double check the lines, but I think you're in the sort of northern rural region for prevailing wage, so it would be based on those.
And not Clark County or Washington County?
Correct, that's
Okay.
correct.
I have a question on AB 240. How did these counties listed, Carson, Douglas, Lyon, and Washoe, get picked by the legislature to work on growth and not Clark County?
So, can I just chime in here?
Go
Sorry. While we weren't heavily involved in this bill, just because it had to do with specific county issues, this was something, my understanding is, this was something that these counties were already meeting on to address growth issues in those areas. All this bill did was require those meetings.
It's necessary. It was not last September, September before, the state lands meeting here. The Washoe representative said that they expect 2 million people in the Washoe-Carson area in 2 years. So we're just kicking down to next September, and we'll see if there's 2 million people moved in. The only report I heard was 50,000, but last time I went to Reno, there's millions of people there now.
The stat I keep hearing,
car.
The stat I keep hearing is 90,000 additional new driver's licenses at the DMV. That's a way to sort of gauge growth, and that's what they've been having at their DMVs there. So.
You know what road rage is in this town? 3 people before you had a stop sign.
Fair.
I have a couple other issues that we worked hard on at the legislature that I want to give you an update on. And then we've just got a couple more slides for you. Workers' comp was a big issue this last session. A lot of bills, a lot of discussions on that. And as you know, well, it affects all counties. The summary on that is that the unions collectively have a lot of lobbyists at the legislature and have proposed a number of bills with broad-ranging collective bargaining reforms. Some of them, what we said initially amounted to a total overhaul of workers' comp in Nevada. Now for you guys, your workers' comp, I believe, is through Pool Pact, and that's how you pay for that. So we worked with representatives from Pool Pact and of course the urban counties as well. Clark County was helpful on this and took a lead on these bills. But NACO worked very hard as well, meeting with the governor's office and legislative leadership. In the end, the unions did get a lot of pressure to walk back these reforms. Some of these bills died. Of the ones that got through, though they will cause your workers' comp costs to rise, as I'm sure you've already probably seen in the bills that come to you from Pool Pact. The impact will not be the dramatic overhaul that we feared. The key bills that I will mention is AB 492. This expands workers' comp coverage for PTSD and allows unlimited temporary benefits for PTSD. So that increases costs to you guys for insurance for first responders. And then AB 215 is probably the big one. It expands benefits related to the coverage of cancer for firefighters. It expands those heart and lung benefits to arson investigators and trainers. It also expands the list of cancers that were coverage, that are included as known carcinogens, and so therefore covered. It also creates a lifetime eligibility for first responders who work over 20 years. So once you put 20 years in, you're pretty much eligible for many cancers for the rest of your life as a workers' comp claim. So this is probably the bill that will have the most impact and probably why you might see your workers' comp costs have already increased. Indigent defense reform was another big issue this session. AB 81 was the bill that passed. It's something we worked hard on to ensure that counties still had some say in this issue in the oversight of your public defenders, as well as to ensure that counties won't be assessed or won't have to pay additional costs for this and have some leverage with the state in terms of costs for indigent defense rising. So there is now state oversight for your public defenders. There's a board that was formed. However, one of the things that we did get done is to ensure that that board is majority county folks. So there's 4 NACO appointees on that board and then a few from the urban counties. So the majority voice now of that regulatory body is counties. So the board will oversee your public defenders. They've probably already reached out to your county staff to come out and talk to your contract public defenders and try to figure out how much you guys spend. That board will be setting some new standards. However, to comply with those standards, one of the other important provisions in this bill was the county, that board can pass a cap on county costs, which we expect them to do here in the next month or two, so that going forward, your costs presumably will be capped at what you spend now. There's also a provision in the bill requiring the new director for Indigent Defense Services at the state for her to put in the state budget any increase in costs for counties, so that you guys are capped, and if reform costs any money, that's something that has to go in the state budget for payment back to you guys. So that's all getting up and going. We're providing updates on that to the NACO board and a workshop on that later this summer.
I have a question. We're the 11th Judicial Court. It's us, Lovelock, and Mineral. And we've been pretty much carrying Mineral because they just don't have any money. They're not generating any revenue. How are you going to help those folks that don't have any money, but yet there's these demands placed on their budget?
Well, exactly, and that's exactly our argument when we were working on this bill. And so that's why one of the important provisions that we actually drafted and got into this bill was that you have a county cap, so that Mineral County, whatever they pay now for that contract for their public defender, the way it's supposed to work is that if they have to hire another public defender, if the reform costs money, the state has to pay for that and not the county.
Okay.
I do have a question for you, Dagny. So on the workshop, and I did take notes on a lot of these different bills. SB 215, I took a note stating that the full-time and volunteer differ in your work comp. That there's, I don't know if your rates are different or your benefits are different. Can you explain that a little bit?
You know what? I cannot without that bill in front of me.
Oh, okay.
But I can get you that answer, and we can work with Pullback to make sure that you understand that.
Well, I kind of just wanted to bring it up to the board too, because we don't have a paid service. And it definitely will impact the county, but I don't think the benefits are going to be as great for the volunteer services that we have.
I think the bottom line there is that those folks are eligible for workers' comp claims, and so that's where the county gets hit fiscally. Beyond that, in terms of the specific benefits, I can't speak in that much detail, especially without the bill in front of me, but we can get you that information.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Like I said, that one will also apply to our volunteers, and I know it will affect us, but we won't get hit as hard since we don't have paid, but it will still be a cost. Thank you.
And I just had one more thing on indigent defense, because I heard Ted express some frustration on whether the state actually will pick up the tab. And with the cap in place, if the state doesn't pick it up and you can't comply, the state, they still can't mandate that you pay for it. So we hope that how that works out is, the state's under pressure from the ACLU on this, and they sued the state, they did not sue the counties. And so the understanding is, this is the state's liability. So if the counties are paying what because now every county in the state's the one paying for this. A couple counties get a little help from the state, but it's all counties. And so, so if the state's not paying and the counties aren't paying more, then reform's not happening, and the state's the one that's liable for that. So, finally, one other thing that I wanted to mention is county assessments. So you all get assessed by the state for a number of services and things. It's something, the county budget is something we watch very closely throughout the session, including those county assessments. We call some of these push downs or unfunded mandates to counties that I know you all are familiar with. Overall, there were two programs, two costs that were significant this last session that increased. One was for your rural CPS, Child Protective Services, that you pay for through the Department of Health and Human Services, and the other is for your Medicaid match. Both of those increase for Lander County. Both of those increases were made at the last minute as a surprise to us. We went to leadership and tried to argue with them on those. They tried to increase them earlier in session. We fought back on the Medicaid match assessment. So it's something that there's a lot of negotiation on always, and it's something we work really hard on. We've adjusted our strategy to deal with this going forward because it is such a big impact to the counties, especially the Medicaid match assessments. One thing is that the Medicaid division doesn't themselves have really reliable information on caseloads and their own costs, which we hope is something that's changing, but we've been meeting with them on that as well. So one of the things in response to this that the NACO board did is we are doing an actuarial study of the state's Medicaid costs for their costs that counties are assessed for. So you're assessed for the long-term care for the indigents who have Medicaid, as well as some services around that. We're doing an actuarial study of those costs so that hopefully we'll have a projection for the next 20 years of how those costs will increase and therefore how your assessments will increase. So that we can go to the legislature and be informed and let them know, hey, counties pay for this, and we can make an argument that those costs for us should not increase, although they seem to always want us to pay for that, and in statute, counties are mandated to pay some for the indigent, so that's how they get us, because that is the state law. But also through the Indigent Accident Fund, there's some conversations happening over the next 2 months about perhaps shifting some of the uses of the Indigent Accident Fund to help counties pay for those Medicaid match assessments. And you do pay into the Indigent Accident Fund. So it's an issue we're working on, and an issue I know impacted Lander County because those costs went up for you guys.
I have a question, real quick,
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
CPS part. Now, is that something, these fees that they want to charge, is that something new, or is that something we've been paying a small portion prior?
So all counties in statute are made responsible for child protective services. So that's something that counties are responsible for. Clark and Washoe, they have their own program, they pay for that. In the rurals, the state, it's a state program, and they bill you for administering that program. So you actually pay for almost 100%, I believe, of the costs for the rural child protective services program. However, they had to purchase a new intake system, so they told us. The department actually asked the state to pay for it, and at the last minute, the legislators said, no way, counties pay for this, and they made you pay for it. So that's why those costs increase, but that is something that the counties have always been responsible for.
Well, on this increase, I'm looking at this letter, when we pay this huge increase, but we don't get the service, I'm sorry, that the families and children need in Lander County, but yet we still don't have any say on the increase.
No oversight either.
There's absolutely no oversight and I have someone who worked for years and still am with CPS and trying to protect children. A huge issue having to be mandated to pay this when they're not doing what they need to be doing in our counties and we can't do anything about it.
Amen.
Well, I would say a couple things to that. We would love more information on that if you have data or even anecdotal stories about that service not being taken care of in your community. But I would say this, you do have the option to take it over yourselves. So you could do that if you found that you think you could do it more effectively for the same price. We went to them and said, hey, listen, what are we paying for here? Because we hear things like this. They said that they had to create a new intake system and that would help. But we would love to hear those stories. So if you can send that to us, because we met with their director recently, and if we had stories like that when we met with him and we can circle back with him, that helps our arguments absolutely on the payment. So please.
Oh yeah, there's not a problem with that.
We'd love
Their
to hear about
intake
that.
system that they've had to revamp is of no use, and it's no use to law enforcement or the school districts that are trying repeatedly to, and this is the excuse that they get. It's a poverty issue. It's a poverty issue, and that's what they keep using. I'm not kidding. That's what the excuse that no, this is not a CPS problem. This is a poverty issue, and they won't deal with it. And yes, I can get with you because I have horror stories of this that it ties law enforcement's hands. It ties the school district's hands, and if we're paying for this, then they need to be doing something.
Yeah, I'd love to get with you and to have more of this so that we can have that information on hand.
Because I've gone all the way up to the top as far as fighting this, and it's got it for 15 years, and it's got me absolutely nowhere.
Okay.
It's really encouraging though that we could run CPS in our county. Be another officer or two, but.
So, all right, yes.
Let's talk about it.
Thank you.
that's it for our summary. We expect a number of these same conversations to come back in the 2021 session. Of course, collective bargaining, we know we'll be fighting on that front again. Public records reform, we'll probably be talking about that again. And of course, as always, we'll be following the state budget and how that impacts counties. Our NACO legislative subcommittee will begin to meet in the next month or two. That's a committee that's open to all commissioners as well as any county staff. So if you're interested in these issues, let us know. We'd love to have more participation on that committee. Just a couple other things before we wrap up. Every county in Nevada is a member of the National Association of Counties, and so thank you for your participation in that. They have a strong lobby on Capitol Hill and work on a wide variety of issues that affect counties. They're one of the main reasons why we keep getting our PILT payments funded. They work a lot on that as well as other issues. We have 2 representatives from Nevada on their national board that sets their policies and determines what they lobby on Capitol Hill. They also have a number of steering committees on federal policy issues, so if any of you have an interest in federal policy issues, we can put any of you on any of those steering committees. If you have an interest, just reach out to us and let us know. And finally, the National Association has a board dedicated specifically to Western issues. NACO's a member of that. And Commissioners Jim French from Humboldt County and Dee Mardahl from Elko County are your representatives on that. As I mentioned before, our annual conference in Fallon this year, hosted by Churchill County. We hope to see you there. And this is our office in Carson City, a pre-statehood building that's on the Historic Register. We're very proud of it. Come see us anytime. And this is our contact information. And thank you again for letting us present to you today and for your engagement in NACO. We'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Just a couple, if I may.
Sadie Sullivan, Loudoun County Clerk. I just wanted to make you aware of the AB 345. That's the same day voter registration. The effect that it'll have on our county. There'll be some different procedures. Also, on the ballot, the question number 5, the automatic voter registration that was passed in the 2018, that's had a huge pack. So what's happening is when you go into DMV to renew a license, get a new license, they have to give you, for sure there's 2 forms, possibly 3. The people are not reading the forms properly. They can have a part where they can check it off and it's leaving it to where it's saying that they fled. What's happened is there's averaging between 63% to more or more that people are not filling out those forms. What's happening is we're getting DMVs connected to us now. So that is causing for some of the voters to be switched over to nonpartisans, and they are not aware because they fled. So there's been a real big miscommunication there. DMV hasn't been trained on that. So just to give you a little bit of heads up, and if you have to go in yourself, make sure that you do follow those procedures, and then also kind of spread the word as well, because during your primary, your party does count. So people that are not realizing, you know, the nonpartisan or them getting switched over to that could cause havoc on the day of the primary election. So anyway, I just wanted to give you heads up on that, and it's caused quite the havoc. We've had daily meetings with the state. Now it'll be weekly, and we're just trying to track those. So thank you.
And you all received this. I didn't mention it, but this is a summary. It's self-explanatory of all the bills where you have to, not all the bills that affect counties, but the ones where you have to take some sort of action or change some sort of procedure based on a law that was passed. So again, any questions, or call us anytime if there's any additional information that you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kathy, I have a question. Thank you. I just wanted a comment, Vincent, from you regarding our Fallon Range modernization final. And if you all remember, a couple of the counties and Lander specifically asked NACO to represent us on this. And I know that they've got their reports out, and there's all kinds of meetings in Fallon the end of this month. So I wondered if you could just tell us where you are. You are attending and...
Correct, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Vincent Guthrow, Deputy Director at NACO. So that's correct. Commissioner Waits, the sort of final EIS has been published by the Navy in regards to the Fallon Range Training Complex expansion and modernization. The publication of that triggered a 30-day waiting period, it's called. This EIS is a little bit different because it's a congressional, like a legislative EIS, if that makes sense. So it mirrors some of the same rules as a regular EIS, but there's some provision, because they're submitting this to Congress, who will ultimately approve this project in whatever form. So there is a meeting in Fallon on the 28th. I'm sorry, it's a public meeting where they're gonna fully review the final EIS, and yes, I will be in attendance. And we're also working. The governor's office has been working well with multiple stakeholders, counties included, which is great, and they've really seen and understood what our issues are, and they've been working also along with us with the Navy to try and mitigate some of these issues, as well as our congressional delegation and senators. So that's where it stands now. The 30-day waiting period ends on February 9th. So that's where we are. And then they'll, from there, the Navy will, the Secretary of the Navy will need to sign a record of decision, and that record of decision is what is submitted to Congress to be formalized or reviewed and approved or not approved, however that might be.
Thank you. You just might want to mention the legislative conference that's coming up and the Navy representation that we have.
Sure. So I believe it's February 28th through March 4th is this year's National Association of Counties Legislative Conference in DC. It's a great conference. There's updates on all sorts of federal issues that affect counties. And NACO as a group also goes to Capitol Hill and meets with each member of our delegation. We work on a list of federal policy priorities that Nevada NACO supports. Our board is hearing a draft of those the end of this month, and we'll take those with us when they're finalized to our delegation and sort of lobby them on behalf of counties and let them know what some of our priorities are. So yeah, that's happening at the end of February, and we always take a group back there, and a couple of you have been, and so we encourage attendance at those national conferences if there's any interest. They talk about a lot of issues, always very informative, and you get to network with county commissioners from across the country. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, please.
It's nice to meet you in person.
Yes.
It's so much fun. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good.
That was a very nice presentation.
Good.
We appreciate it.
Sure.
No, okay.
And I really
I've
don't
seen
think
the
the state's
information on
been
it,
done.
but I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I think they
I
might
think it
pay
was
a couple
on the
times,
union.
but at the end of the day, it's on
think
them,
it
and
was
that's
on
what
the
works so
union
hard on that
one.
bill to me.
So we're gonna go back into order, all right? All right, verbiage. Good to go? Good to go?
Yep.
All right, so.
Okay.
All right, we're going on to number 14. For possible action to approve, disapprove, or modify a contract between Lima County and the State of Nevada Department of Administration Public Works Division on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public and Behavioral Health Rural Clinics, and to approve the chair or vice chair to sign.
So this is our contract that we currently hold. There are no changes to it other than the length of it.
And the what?
Other than the length, the term, but I know there's some questions.
This is now a 5-year contract, and there is no early out clause. Those are the two things that I wanted to point out. There's no early out clause, and it's 5 years, and there's no provision in the contract that the rent goes up at all during that 5-year period. So they're basically grandfathered into the same charge. Now, there's also a clause that allows them to renew the contract, automatically renew it with a small, I think 5% additional charge after the 5 years.
So I have a question. So my opinion is we should keep it as it is. We shouldn't extend it to 5 years for the simple fact that I think the rent is $1,400 a month. And if you read through it, we're responsible for a lot of things, providing security if needed, all utilities, janitorial, and it's just, I don't think it's smart business. Locks it up for 5 years. we could possibly find a use for that building that would pay us more. On a yearly basis, we could look at it every year and say, hey, we're gonna charge more because this has increased for us. All those options go away if we sign this contract, so that's my opinion.
So you're for the contract?
No, I'm not for the change, not
I
for
don't
the
like
5 years
not
long.
having an in-out. I don't like having an in-out, and I don't like going beyond 2 years. I mean, we've agreed to that numerous times.
So as it stands now, it's 1 year, right? We look at it annually?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the way we should keep it.
Okay.
I definitely don't like the 5, so whatever you want to agree on, less than that is good for me. However, when we make the motion, it says for the chair or vice chair to sign, and if you actually look at, like the exhibits, Exhibit C, it has our county manager to sign, and then on the other page, the access and confidentiality agreement, it's also our county manager. So when we do the motion of whatever you'd like to do, I think we need that the county manager has the authorization to sign that.
Now, if from a legal standpoint, if you make any modification to the proposed contract, you need to understand that it could take some time because it has to go through 3 agencies for that modification, for them to look at the modification. Just so you know, it's already 6 months beyond the term of the contract, so they're basically on a month-to-month right now, just so you know that.
So with that, it's been voiced, the consensus is we don't like the contract as it's stated. And I guess if everyone's okay with it, I would make a motion that we modify the contract to include a 2-year maximum.
Is that the standard that you guys are using now?
Yeah, we've been 2 years on all of them with an in and out 30 days.
It's been 2 years previously.
Okay, so 2-year standard with, you know, a 30-day out.
Yep.
And request that our district attorney, revise the contract and present it and bring it back to the board.
My opinion is we should we should make it a year on our real estate and leave our options open, and that's what I think.
I'll go either way with a year or 2 years, but I'm not going 5. And the in and out.
The motion is to bring it back to the board, but if they agree to the 2 years, we don't need to bring it back to the
Well,
board.
it'll come back, because it's got to
It's
go
month to
through
month,
3
right.
different agencies for their approval, and then it'll come back for your approval. So they redo the whole contract.
Okay.
This is bureaucratic nightmare.
And I'll second
this time.
Judy's motion.
So that is,
2 years.
Would you like any provision in there for an annual increase of 1%, 2%, or anything like that? Because it stays stagnant for 5
Yeah,
years.
exactly, I think we should. Yeah, I don't think it should, for all the services that we have to provide.
What percentage would you like to increase annually or biannually, however you would like?
Well, if it's a 2-year contract,
We could still do
we can revisit it after that 2-year period.
Yeah, and the motion is just a 2-year contract.
Because that's why we kept it at 2 years, if you recall, the people who were on the commission then, is because there was no 30-day out clause, and you could revisit it after a 2-year period. But with 5 years, it's just, for real estate, it's just.
And remove the automatic renewal clause.
Well, and give me 1 second.
Oh, yeah, and you might want to review that too.
Well, and I think of the one on the year to year is that because of the bureaucratic problem that it goes through, then they end up going back to a month to month. Because you have to start basically 6 months ahead of it. Every 6 months, you're basically renewing and going through the bureaucratic problem of it, where if it's 2 years, it gives us a little bit of time, and that we can revisit and put the percentage, I mean, that percentage could be automatically built into it to begin with.
Well, that's why they wanted 5 years, because it goes through so many steps to be renewed. That's their argument for the 5 years.
Well, no, but that also has us over a barrel too, for as far as.
Yes.
So I can definitely modify the motion, but I guess a question being, do we want to increase it this next contract?
I think we should, especially if you guys agree on a 2-year, I think it needs to be more money. I don't think it should.
How long has it been since it's been increased? Anything's been increased on it?
At least 2 years and 6 months.
So, yeah, I think that is something that should be,
And what percentage or what amount would we like to increase that
If
to?
we're gonna lock it in for 2 years, I say 1750, because we're at 1400 right now, right?
Yes.
So I'll modify my motion to also include an increase to the monthly rent to $1,750 per month.
And you have a 30-day in out.
Do you want to take out the automatic renewal clause at the end?
And remove the automatic renewal clause.
30 days in and out.
I think that did include the
That's-
30 days, the
that's-
prior motion.
Yeah, that's been standard in all of our
Right.
contracts.
Except this one. This is
Well,
the
So you
exception.
move,
So the motion is that we request Ted to rewrite the contract, to go with a 2-year contract, include a 30-day out, increase the rent to $1,750 with no automatic renewal after 2 years.
you're increasing it $350 a month?
Well,
No,
it's
we're going
been-
from 1400 to 1750 a month. So it's $350 to be exact a month, if we're gonna lock
That's
into
what
a
I just
2-year
said.
contract.
You're-
Yeah, I thought you said 150.
No, 350.
Yeah, 350, yes.
Commissioner, just so you know, they won't allow me to write the contract.
Okay, well,
But I can, Keith and I can advise them of the changes, but they just will not allow me to do it. They have to do it there at the state level.
I'm going to pull my second on that, no.
I'll second the motion.
any more discussion? You want something?
no. Change my mind.
Huh?
Change my mind.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed? All right, going on to number 15. So, for possible action to revisit the January 9th, 2020 Commissioner's decision regarding the voting and alternate member to represent Lander County for the NACO Association of Counties.
Yeah, I was pretty confused by the results of this after the meeting. I thought that I was the voting member. I didn't realize we were sending 3 people. I thought the motion was for me to be the voting member, for Patsy to be the alternate a voting member, and then we wouldn't need 3 people going to NACO all the time.
Okay, my name wasn't even mentioned, other than the fact that I do sit on the board already as a past chair. But as far as the motions, that wasn't the way it came. We have the right to appoint a representative. I'm sitting on in other capacities, but I can still be your representative if you want me to be, and that would save the extra money of 2 people going. Last year I was president, and so I went as president, and Judy was our representative. And then we had Kathy as an alternate. So this year, it was the same thing. They voted Judy to go again, and you as the alternate.
Yeah, well, I was pretty confused about that.
Okay, that's what actually happened. Now, if you wanna change that,
And this was my understanding, was, because I made the motion to keep her as, but I thought, for some reason, when Art, as the alternate, I thought he was a voting member.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was taking the place of Patsy, that's how my understanding was.
Yeah, that was
It was
my
my
understanding
mistake.
too.
as an alternate, you only vote if the representative.
It's not there.
Right.
Judy, go ahead.
Okay, so, I did watch the video again, and Art did, indicate that he would like to attend NACO, and I will have to say that, watching the video, it might have, I might have misspoke in some respects. I actually made the motion I made the motion for me as the voting member, but it should have been as the primary member, and Brian seconded it, And the vote was all in favor, aye, and Art voted aye to that as well. So then I made the motion for Art to be the second, or to be the alternate member. Brian seconded that. We all voted in favor of that. So in effect, what it should have been was, we're both voting members, other than he is the alternate. So, basically is, I'm the primary for NACO, Art is the alternate. As Patsy has stated, anybody can go to these, NACO meetings. You know, anything involving NACO, anybody can attend. But as we voted and approved, is I'm a representative of NACO for the meetings, and unless I can't make it or whatnot, it's just the same as, you know, Kathy's an alternate to me for Humboldt River Basin Water Authority, Central Nevada Regional Water Authority, LEPSI, is we are the representatives, and we both have the voting opportunity, but not at the same time. It's one or the other. So, we can't both vote if we go, but, and I made the motion that I be the representative for NACO.
So just for clarification, and I'm glad that Dagny's here today, so if I get it wrong, Dagny, jump in, but, this year for Lander County is unique in the sense that Patsy is the past president. So we have 2 voting members at NACO this year, which we only usually get 1. So Patsy is one of the voting members for NACO this year.
No.
She just said yes.
No, but I don't represent Lander County as the representative.
But you are a voting member. You are a voting member. So what it's gonna come down to is how the commission wants to do this is, who do they want as their primary voting member and their alternate? If the primary doesn't show up or can't make the meeting, the alternate is a voting member. If they both happen to go to the meeting, the primary is the only voting member. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
me now.
that is the way it's set up right now. Commissioner Waits is the past president and a voting member of NACO. Commissioner Allen is the primary voting member. Commissioner Clark is the alternate that can cast a vote if the primary is not available or can't go to the meeting for some reason. That's the way it is right now.
Right, I understand that, but Brian was confused, Kathy was confused,
I'm
and I
just
was
confused.
confused.
I was just trying to clear up the process.
Yeah.
Part with Patsy's what confused me.
Yeah, exactly.
Cause I thought.
Next year, we only have 1 voting member and 1 alternate.
Okay, so, yeah,
Well,
that's
we
where
should-
I was also confused,
Well,
so.
As Patsy, we need to make a record of this. Patsy is a voting member as a past president, but she's not a representative of Lander County. It's important, that's a nuance, but it's very important. Her vote, she doesn't have to represent Lander County. She can vote however she wishes.
Right.
So so the record needs to be clear on that.
Well, with that, I want to make a motion to nominate myself as the primary person for NACO.
And I'll second. And the reason I'm seconding, because I thought Art was going to have some, I wanted some fresh perspective in there, and I thought you were a voting member, and I stand corrected. So I apologize if I created any upset by that.
Thanks, Brian.
And yes, I'm sorry for the confusion as well, cause I didn't understand, so. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So,
All
yeah.
opposed?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, you guys, all opposed, I'm sorry.
Nay.
Kathy?
We still need an alternate.
Okay.
Because since Art was the previous alternate, and it's changed, we still need an alternate.
Okay.
Somebody needs to make a motion then.
We
make a motion that I'm the alternate for NACO.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Nay.
Moving on to 16. For possible action to approve, disapprove, or modify the credit card agreement for Lander County credit card use.
So what we've done is we've modified this agreement a little bit, and the changes are, number 8, what we've run into a lot is when people go to get fuel receipts, they are not, sometimes the machine's out of paper and it's at night and the office is closed and they can't get a receipt. So what we've done, what I've been doing, is if they don't have a receipt, and it's happened to me, you pay it out of your pocket. Well, it's kind of an issue, it's happened to other people where they now are required to pay that $40 or $50 out of their pocket because we don't have a receipt, there's no receipt, but the agreement says they have to have a receipt. So this takes out the receipt issue with fuel only. And if they can't get a receipt, they need to write a statement to say that I wasn't able to get a receipt, it was out of paper and the main office, or the kiosk was closed, so I could not get a receipt. So that's what we did there. Number 9, we put some teeth into it that once they get their credit card statements, they have to have it back to finance within 15 days with all of their backup. And they are subject to their card being suspended if it doesn't get in within that 15 days. Their card will be suspended until all the documentation is in and accounted for. But yes.
So I have a question, so there's nothing in there, so let's say they never do provide it. Should there be something in there they'd be responsible for repayment? I don't see anything about that in there.
Okay.
And then on number 3, it says I will not let anyone else, unless authorized by me, to use a Lander County credit card. Why would you authorize anybody but yourself if they're not a county employee?
Yeah, we have that problem, because we order things like for the airport board and stuff, and I do use my credit card. So sometimes if I
So
can't.
you give it to somebody like
Well, if I can't get through, I have Michelle make the call for me. Sometimes I try to do it, but it isn't always possible. And so sometimes it's still all for the same thing, but.
It's,
1 second. Jim?
Keith can go ahead and answer, Patsy.
it's, well, I wanted to
Or
actually direct to Commissioner Sparks. It's not to give it to just anybody. It would be in the instance like
I understand
Patsy
this
said.
scenario, yeah.
So that's it. It's not to give it to just anybody in the public.
And then what about the first part of my question? That if they don't, are they gonna be responsible for your payment?
If you would like to add that in there,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, this is for you to, if you wanna modify it in any way, let me know.
Yeah,
We'll add
so
that in
it's-
there and make it policy.
If they can't provide a receipt, they're gonna use a credit card and spend taxpayers' dollars, and they're not big enough people to give you a receipt and account for it, then they should be responsible for it.
All right.
I agree.
Kathy?
I would just like a.
She's got started. 1 second. Go ahead.
So I just want to state that, per the county credit card use and accountability policies and procedures, it does state that each expense must be accompanied by an itemized receipt. As far as not being able to get receipts, I guess, I can maybe see early morning for some reasons whatsoever, certain employees working that wouldn't be able to get a receipt, but I really think that every single credit card charge should have a receipt. I understand there's extenuating circumstances, but those are not the norm, and I don't feel that if you don't have a receipt, as Brian stated, this is taxpayer money, and you need to account for it. So if you don't have a receipt, then you're liable for it.
Patsy has 1 second.
But the only exception is the fuel.
It is just,
Yeah,
this is just for
and that is a
fuel.
problem. But I do think I want more detailed information all they have to do, I mean, I've been there myself, it doesn't come out, you know, what do you do if they're closed? But you can write it down, exactly what pump and what time and how much fuel and how many gallons, just you do the receipt.
And that is part of the
Yeah.
documentation that says that the receipt wasn't available, and we can add more to it if you like.
Right. No,
to include address, gallons.
Full details of pump, that's all.
Okay, all right, this is just for gasoline, or fuel, nothing else.
Fuel.
And the auditor, one second, Ellen. When the auditors were here, that question was brought up, and they said that at times it does say fuel, when you swipe your
Yes.
car, it does say fuel, that you are getting, so that can count. But just like you said, when you're writing out your documentation, it's going to be all the information of where you were and why you couldn't get your receipt. And go ahead.
Well, and I think that if there's an abuse, if there's a reason that, you know, this keeps happening, that it raises questions to me of, why is this always happening? Why are you getting fuel, you know, at hours that aren't, you know, you don't have an attendant to go into get a receipt, to get a written receipt or a printed receipt from the gas attendant or store attendant, whatever. I'm just still, I'm having an issue. I do understand that there are extenuating circumstances, but I don't wanna see it abused. I think that if it does start happening on a continual basis, that, you know, it be brought before the commission to reevaluate. Once or twice a year, maybe, but, I mean, if we're gonna make a perpetual habit of this, it raises questions.
Is it that bad, Keith?
No, it's not, but it has happened. It's happened to me, it's happened to other people in the building, it's happened to a couple of commissioners. It's not an ongoing thing, and it's not a regular occurrence. In the last, I can think of twice since we've got credit cards in 4 years, it's happened to me. But it's not, it doesn't happen every month or anything like that. It's a very rare occurrence, but it does cause a hardship when I tell somebody, like a commissioner, well, you gotta pay for it out of your pocket. And it's been, everybody's been compliant, haven't had any issues with it, but then they're like, you know, why am I paying for it out of my pocket? It's on my credit card statement, but the policy at the time that you signed says you will provide a receipt. So.
And I don't think that, you know, that somebody should have to pay for fuel out of their pocket if they can't get a, you know, this is only strictly for fuel. If they can't get a ticket, that they should have to pay it out of their pocket.
And I agree with Patsy, just be your own, you know, you can be diligent in it.
Yeah.
This pump, they were closed, they didn't print me a receipt, place, time, form, and event, here it is.
And we can add that,
Yeah.
that's not a problem.
If Patsy's traveling from Ely to home, and she stops in Eureka and they're closed, you know, she's the one that I would use as an example, driving at night, cause she travels late all the time.
And Austin closes.
Yeah.
Austin closes, but the point is, even though they're closed, usually I get a receipt, so, but once in a while I don't, you're right. But I agree with Judy, if you find that this has been one person more than a couple times, we've gotta call them in, because you may, now I don't have a choice of fuel in Austin, but you do have a choice in Eureka, there's 2 places, so if you really are traveling and know that that's closed, and they have a problem, you might wanna think about another gas station. Here you have choices, so, I would not put anything in the paperwork here, I would leave it up to our county manager and say, if somebody runs this more than a couple times, that something is wrong.
I do wanna make it very, very clear, it hasn't been abused by anyone.
Okay.
It's just, it's an occasional problem, and it's been several different people, several different county card holders,
And
and
it does-
it's just,
So then, can it, instead of being flatly for fuel or whatever, can it be stated in there if there's a reoccurrence, then it can be brought back, at that time, it can be brought back in front of the commissioners?
if it's a
You can't,
habitual abuse, absolutely,
you know, instead of,
yes.
you know, I don't know how you guys feel, instead of having to go to this extreme, if there is a problem, then it can be brought back in front of us instead of changing a whole.
Well, just leave it how it is, and, I mean, he's your day-to-day guy, so it's like, he sees a problem.
I will bring it to you.
Yeah, and so I mean, if
Absolutely.
that's, and if it continues to happen, then you risk to bring it back to us and, we deal with it at that time. Cause I know that it's a pain and I understand and I respect that, but I think that we deal with it on a case-by-case basis of the person who's not getting their receipts.
And like I said, it hasn't been one person over multiple times, it's just been throughout different employees at different times.
So what do we do? What do we do with it?
It's action.
So,
You don't have to take an action. If you're not changing anything,
Well,
It's
I
been
wanted
discussed.
I wanted
Change
something
date.
that makes them responsible, that if they don't provide it, that they're gonna be responsible for the money.
Yes, and we will add that.
so can we just have this brought back with that,
Yeah.
that teeth in it?
Okay.
Okay, can we do that?
Yep. Okay.
Alright. We're good going? For 17, for possible action to approve, disapprove the superseding contract and settlement agreement between Lander County and the Battle Mountain Lands Company LLC, BMLC, and to approve the chair or vice chair to sign.
This contract, and we've discussed this in litigation meetings prior, we rescinded the contract, if you recall, because there was a legal misunderstanding of the terms of the contract. So we entered into a rescission, we returned their down payment, and we've been in negotiations ever since, with announced by council. So this is the new agreement. Now, the 2 points, the important points that, and both of the people are here to answer these questions, are the APN numbers correct? And can we make the dates? So Aaron's here, and you can ask him if we can make the dates. If we can make the dates and the APN numbers are correct, this is a good negotiation, in my opinion.
Hello, Commissioners.
Hey,
Aaron Martinez, owner of AM Engineering, 742 D Street, Elko, Nevada. Yeah, so we have triple checked the APNs. I want to make it clear though, obviously APNs are a number that's designated to a parcel at the time of the current ownership. As that ownership changes, those parcel numbers fluctuate. We haven't seen anything that showed that that ownership's changed, so those parcel numbers have not fluctuated since the contract's initiation. In terms of time frame, we're under a very tight time frame, very tight. Essentially, we have a bid opening coming up next week for this project. This contract that's in front of you today is contingent on that contract being accepted. So I think that the next step that the commission needs to understand is once this contract today that's been accepted, the next thing that'll be in front of you is an acceptance of the awarded contractor that would, we would accept their bid coming up next week. That would then solidify this agreement, unless I'm mistaken, that once that contract has been accepted, construction contract, and then this agreement has been solidified. I believe this agreement comes to terms at the end of February or very near there. So right now, we're on schedule to be back in front of you on the first meeting of February to accept that construction contract, which would again then solidify this agreement, and we would have achieved the contract terms.
And for the record, our outside counsel, Ted Christianer out of Reno, in Hoy Christianer Law Firm, has approved this. And he is available if you want to talk to him, but he had those two questions. He said if the APN numbers are right and if we can make the time, and I repeated that to you. So those are the only questions I had on it, and Aaron's answered those to my satisfaction, and it's up to you. How do you want to proceed?
And with this is because we had the APNs incorrect last time?
Yes.
And so now we have to go forward with this agreement because of the contract we had with the other party?
Well, this is a negotiation. We tried to rescind the contract, but if we litigated it, we would be litigating the first contract.
Okay,
So this, we're trying to get rid of the first contract,
okay,
and this is how we do it.
all right.
Any questions? I'll make a motion that we approve this superseding contract and settlement agreement between Lander County and Battle Mountain Land Company LLC BLC and approve the chair, vice chair to sign. Is that an appropriate, is that a good motion, Ken? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So, is that our last one?
17.
Oh, okay.
18.
So, correspondence reports, potential upcoming agenda items.
Something I was gonna ask, and when the engineer here, Job's here, so, we spend a lot of money on our airport. And that's why I wanted to know kind of what do we capture in revenues from that?
Okay, and I
And
have
it's-
that here. Would
And
you
it's,
like to hear it?
you know, it's like, you know, firefighting season is one of our biggest revenue providers.
Right.
My question is, and you might be able to answer this too, is in the grant process, is there any money available to where we could commercialize that somewhat, run commercial flights out of there? Because if you look at it, we've got all these mines around us, you have to go to Elko, you have to go to Reno to fly out. Why couldn't we provide that service here and capture more revenue out of this airport that we spend so much money on?
I see
Why
that.
limit ourselves?
Right, so I did meet with Tom and David last night, and that did come up in discussion about how we might be able to look at some commercial flights, terminal and so forth.
Yeah.
And I believe it was FAA Part 139 is what we talked about. And one of the things we would have to look at would be the ARF truck, the money I put aside last year. I'll probably ask for more this year to finalize that. ARF truck runs about $750,000, and then there's training and so forth put into that. We talked about other options that we might be able to do to try to promote commercial flight into Battle Mountain. And if I miss something, you guys feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, I'm Tom Major with JUB in Boise. The main thing would be to capture an airline to come in here, and that's difficult in these days. In fact, there's airports that are locked and loaded with all the facilities and are having trouble getting air service nowadays. So my first impression on what could be done is do an air service marketing analysis, feasibility for this, and they look at your area and see if there's enough interest, enough population, and enough income to drive that kind of.
And I see that, but it would also be a strong plus point for our industrial park. We have commercialized
Yeah.
flights out of our town, you know, so it's, I hate seeing so much money spent and then not being able to capitalize on all those dollars. And I think that's a big part of it that we're missing, you know.
The good thing that, if I might, you have the runway and you're gonna have the ramp.
Right.
You've got a lot of the amenities that would drive a light commercial aircraft, for sure.
The heavy, David Meyer for the record, the heavy aircrafts the BLM fly for their firefighting, the C-130s, the RJ-85s, those are bigger, the same size or bigger than, you know, a commuter flight. So you do have most of your airside amenities that you would require. The one big change that goes from being a general aviation airport to a commercial airport is you have to go from being an uncontrolled airfield to a controlled airfield, which means a tower, you know, paying for people. It would be, to the best of my knowledge, there's no commercial service that do not have controlled airfield.
Well,
I don't think the airliners have any.
And then
interest in
there's the
safety.
terminal itself.
Yeah.
And, you know, the FAA may or may not take part in that terminal.
Well, these are all my questions.
Yeah,
So it's just a
absolutely.
potential future.
And I don't mean to downplay
Yeah.
anything, but I think the first step would be to get a feasibility plan done
Yeah.
by an air service guy and see if the possibility is even there, and that's pretty cost effective
Yeah.
to get them.
That's
They might just shoot it down right there, or they may say, hey, there's a possibility that you could draw an airline in here.
Yeah, and I
How do we
think the
go
move
about-
to commercial, the FAA is, if you have interest, the FAA, I think, would be interested in playing along. The Part 139 certification, which is a safety and security thing, you know, you've gotta have badging now that you have a controlled airfield. You know, they'd look at your fencing and everything. That's more about your operation side in terms of your infrastructure. The big things would be the tower and the terminal.
How do we move forward doing a feasibility study?
Find an outfit, and we can help you with that,
Yeah.
that does that kind of work. That's pretty specialized
Yeah,
work.
a specialized
some
planning
pl-
outfit would look at that.
Some planning, larger planning firms would have that element within it, but there are a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of, but there's outfits, mostly on the West Coast, bigger cities that can do this kind of thing. They're ex-airport managers who have struggled with this. Then they got a planner on board too. So it's kind of a small firm that specializes in that kind of thing. For the future, an agenda item, Keith?
Yes.
And Med Air One, have we heard anything back from those folks?
Yes, we have actually, she, will
Thanks,
probably.
guys.
Yeah,
she-
thank
she-
you.
Thank you.
I think, you go ahead.
We're not gonna leave right yet, will we?
I spoke with Gina Finninelli, I believe, anyway, yesterday, and I will have her at the next meeting to talk about memberships, the franchise agreement, the basic service versus the nationwide service, and so she will be here at the next meeting.
So, do we have any public comment?
How you doing again, Aaron?
Aaron Martinez for the record. Just a quick question for the engineers. Is there a master plan that's been developed for the airport?
Yes, we can get you a copy of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.